no idea what we just played. What did we just play? Jen, who is our producer, back at the Boardwalk in Kitchener. I have no idea what we just played. What did we just play? That was supposed to be Willie Nelson. I didn't hear any Willie Nelson. You know what they say about the best laid plans. And I like to tease Jen back at the Boardwalk, who is our board operator today, that she likes to, she tries to give me cardiac arrest every single day. I don't know. Was it my headphones? What did I miss? I don't know what I missed. It's Willie Nelson's birthday, and the intention was to play for you. You Are Always on My Mind. And I listened to the song myself this morning. In fact, let me draw the curtain back for you, because I was sitting downstairs here at the hotel in Windsor, where we are sequestered for one more day. Big game tonight, more on that coming up. But I go down to the lobby area to prepare for the show. And one of the things that I prepare for the show is an appropriate song to start the day with. And it was, to be honest with you, a bit of a struggle today. I can't reveal all the secrets of the site I visit to determine which song I will play, but I find a notable song for this day in music history. And there, quite frankly, wasn't a ton, but there was a note about how Willie Nelson celebrated his 90th birthday on this day in 2023 with a couple of concerts. 90 years old, he plays 2 shows. And so I thought, well, I guess it's Willie Nelson's birthday today, so we'll just play. And then I was sitting downstairs with Josh Piercy, my colleague on Rangers broadcasts. Obviously, we're here together. And the Moose, who drives the bus for the Kitchener Rangers and is a massive, massive music fan. And so I thought, well, guys, what Willie Nelson song are we going to play? Because I play On the Road Again far too often. And anyway, we settled, the three of us together, on Always on My Mind. And so we listened to the song together, and we talked about Willie Nelson, and we talked about music, because Moose and Josh are both big music fans. And then we sent in the audio to the radio station, and I have no idea what just played. I don't know what played, but it wasn't what I intended for you to hear. I wanted you to hear a little bit of Willie Nelson, unless it was my headphones, and the headphones just didn't pick up the vocals. I guess is that possible? Did you hear the vocals? I don't know. I know you heard the show start, and when it does, our phone lines are open to you at 519-570-2545, star 570, and 1-800-570-5715. Let's get to the phones, and we'll start this morning with Andre. Good morning, Andre.
Good morning, Mike. You put a big smile on my face here.
How did I do that?
Just because I love your show so much. I love the community.
Oh, that's awesome. I love to hear that. Thank you.
Well, you can tell me that a little bit in a couple seconds here. 3 things. I'll be quick. KW Titans. Hopefully they can save a little bit of champagne for me, because you know I love it. 2, game day, baby. 3, you don't have the power. Go Montreal.
Oh, my gosh. Genevieve, hang up that phone this instant. Jen, hang up the phone right now. Jen, hang it up. Hang it up. Hang it up. Hang it up. Oh, my gosh. Hang it up. I'm not going to talk anymore till you hang up that phone. Oh, my gosh. That is not allowed. That is not allowed. And Jen, did you hear what he just did? I shouldn't have called Jen by her full name. That's what we do behind the scenes. But don't ever let that word get on the air. Oh my gosh. Okay, Andre. I'm going to remember that. I'm going to remember that. Doug is going to be much nicer to me this morning. He's on the phone too. Doug will not invoke the name of the team that shall not be named on this show. Will you, Douglas?
Oh, never.
Okay. Can you believe he just got away with that? Oh my gosh.
Hey, I actually recognize the song, because it's also a song that Elvis covered.
Yes, it is.
And it's funny. It's funny. A lot of people think that Elvis covered Willie Nelson. It was actually the other way around, because Willie didn't record the song until after Elvis had passed away.
That is correct.
And the original song, I'm trying to remember who it was originally done. I want to say Brenda Lee, but it's been a long time since I've had the history behind it. But the song was originally done by a female, so they both covered somebody else. So anyway, yeah, I know a couple of people that actually do sing as Willie Nelson. So it's a song that's always on my mind. Anyway, sorry, I couldn't resist that one. No, you were talking yesterday about watching and listening, and of course, listening is I listen live all the time. And for what it's worth, Mike, I'm going to pay a hell of a compliment because over the course of my time as a sports editor, I did a lot of closed circuit play-by-play for junior hockey in the Junior B, Junior C, and I've crossed paths with people that were very good at what they do, and none of them, including myself, could hold a candle to what you and Josh do. I sit and listen to the game, and I'm literally on the edge of my seat at home because you're in Windsor. So it's fantastic, and I'm looking forward to hearing your call. Ranger win tonight.
Doug, appreciate the call. Your words are very kind. Thank you for that. And I hope you're right about that last part. It is a big day with a big game. Downstairs in the lobby before coming back up to the hotel room, my kind of makeshift studio today. That is one of the things, of course, we were talking about, Moosey, Josh, and I. It's a big game today. We'll get into more of that. We're going to have some time on the show dedicated to it at 11:30 this morning. And, of course, all of the action tonight. Massive hockey game here in Windsor. But Francis is with us as well early this, what day is it? Wednesday morning. Good morning, Francis.
It sure is. I know for sure we're in God's country now. I had to recheck the station if I was on Wingham still yet, but I thought, oh, my God, where's Mike? Then I realized it's on the Kitchener station. I was, oh, man, now that's what I call music. And Chris Christopherson would be going right along with him. So I have to say thank you. It was just great music to my ears.
Wow, Francis, you're very welcome. Thank you for calling in. I'm always glad that we can pry your ears away from swinging Wingham when we start our show every day. That's fantastic. I love it. Okay, let's get in one more before we get to our Farwell Show 5 this morning. I love it. That's what this show is about, right? We get together, start at 9 o'clock every day, gather around and have some conversation. I love knowing what's on your mind. Chris is also on the phone early this morning. Hello, Chris.
Hi, Mike.
Hi,
Game
Chris.
day, baby. Game day,
Game
baby.
day. Game day, baby.
Go Habs, go.
Okay, hang up, Jen. Hang up that phone. Hang up that phone right now, Jen. We got these people. Okay, Chris and Andre. I see. This is what happens. It's like having a substitute teacher. I know because I'm not. You are a bunch of muckety mucks over there. I will tell you. This is not the sort of thing that will be tolerated. Chris and Andre have now been placed into the penalty box. If you hear their voices on this station anytime in the next 2 years, see, usually in hockey, it's a 2-minute penalty. I am so fired up now. I'm giving a 2-year ban. Okay, I'm kidding a little bit, but we know how it goes on this radio station. There are rules on this show. Actually, there's only one. There's one team name that we will not utter. And since I'm not in studio and I don't have access to all my little buttons, you are getting away with breaking the only rule that this show has. And that's too bad. Well, I mean, we should be transparent on this show. I try to uphold that on my end. I know I do. You have to do the same. We're always transparent on this show. We can disagree in a civil way, which we always do. But that's the rule that should not be broken. The team that shall not be named getting named. It has happened twice already today. I will remember. Don't forget that part. I'm like the elephant around here. Never forgets, okay? It is a Wednesday morning, right? Yes. The 29th of April. Let's get to your Farwell Show 5, shall we? And starting at number one, where we find Finance Minister Francois Philippe Champagne, who, of course, tabled yesterday the Canada Strong for All mid-year fiscal update. What does it include? You ask, well, how about $54.5 billion in new costs and spending since budget 2025? Now, improved revenues and reduced expenses elsewhere mean the spring economic update includes $37.5 billion in net new spending. But that's still more spending. The Liberals now estimate last year's federal deficit came in at $66.9 billion, which is more than $11 billion less than the $78.3 billion forecast in the 2025 budget, largely to improved economic performance and some lapses in planned spending. I have a question for you, Minister Champagne. Is that supposed to make me feel better? A $66.9 billion is that, am I happy? What? No, just no. $37.5 billion in new spend. Why? Spend. How about balance? Do we think about balancing budgets in this country anymore? I'm curious. Asking for a friend. How about we balance a damn budget? Okay, I just had to get that off my chest. Number two on your Farwell Show 5 this morning, Ontario Education Minister Paul Calandra says he's looking at a social media ban in schools and would like to go further than what Manitoba has planned. Calandra says the province will be working closely with the federal government on a social media ban for kids under a certain age. He also says he's considering implementing an outright ban of cell phones on school properties with some medical exemptions. Number three on your Farwell Show 5 this morning, Canada's central bank will announce its latest decision on its benchmark interest rate this morning. Economists are expecting the Bank of Canada will keep that rate unchanged at 2.25%. Number four, yes, there is a big hockey game tonight right here in Windsor. Your Kitchener Rangers take the ice against the Spitfires in Game 4 of the Western Conference Final. Kitchener leads the series 2-1. So we will either be home on Friday with the Rangers having a chance to wrap up the series, or we will be in a 2-2 series tie. We've got all the action for you tonight right here on your home of Kitchener Rangers hockey. It all starts with the Harris Law pregame show at 6:30, and Josh Piercy and I will carry you right through the game until its conclusion. Josh is also going to join me on the show this morning at 11:30 to tee up that big game tonight here in Windsor. And don't forget, tickets are already on sale for Friday's Game 5. They went on sale right after the game here on Monday night. So you can still get a chance to join us at the Kitchener Memorial Auditorium on Friday for Game 5 of this Rangers Spitfires series. Speaking of the Kitchener Memorial Auditorium, tonight it will host the Basketball Super League Championship. I mean, we've hosted a couple of games already. The Titans won both of them, taking a 2-0 series lead on the Sudbury Five, but then the series shifted to Sudbury, and the Five won both games there. So tonight is the game. It's for all the Basketball Super League marbles. The championship is on the line tonight at the Kitchener Memorial Auditorium. Get out there and support your KW Titans. And number 5 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning, Canada's first team in the WNBA will get their first taste of their new league tonight when they host the Connecticut Sun in preseason action at Toronto's Coca-Cola Coliseum. The Toronto Tempo will tip off their 22-game home schedule next Friday against the Washington Mystics. And that is your Farwell Show 5 for this Wednesday morning.
Bueller.
I almost said Thursday again. Did you pick that up? I feel a little bit like I'm living that rock star life from town to town, city to city. I know I'm in Windsor. I know there's a game tonight, and I'm going to write down on my piece of paper, Wednesday is today. And your morning wake-up call is coming up. I see Mike on the line. I'll get to him right after this. You're welcome to make the call as well. as we get things underway for this Wednesday morning on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio. Good Wednesday morning. I hope your day is off to a terrific start. A little dreary here in Windsor as we get our time together underway. Phone lines have been busy. This is the time of the morning for your daily wake-up call. Either you can make it or I will. And Mike is on the phone with us, our good friend, Farwell's Force member number 37. Michael, good morning.
Good morning, Michael. I was interested in the comments you made about the deficit this morning. I look at it at a slightly different way. I think there is good debt and there is bad debt. Good debt is stuff like spending on capital projects, anything like that the government wants to undertake, like building ports or whatever. That can be paid off over time. What really drives me nuts as a former businessman and retired businessman is the operating budget debt. If you cannot operate something and at least break even, then you need to look at that, and then you need to make some adjustments, whether it's restructuring, whatever it is. But our government seems to be at municipal, provincial, and federal governments not able to do that, and it drives me nuts, Mike. They seem they can't make the tough decisions, and the other day when you told me about that 89% pay raise, I was going, what the HE double hockey sticks is that? So I think what we need is some people with some fiscal responsibility. I don't mind good capital debt for building infrastructure and stuff like that. That's paid off over time. But the if you have an operating budget for providing services and you're in debt like that, and I know Canada Post is not in, as a crown corporation, but to continually fund them and make up the deficit without restructuring has got to stop. And that's my thoughts, Mike.
All right, Mike, I appreciate the call. And listen, I get you. And of course, that makes a strong business case, operating versus capital. I hear you. But here's my concern further to that. We're not going to actually have the money for, quite frankly, anything if we continue. Like, productivity has not just stalled, it's declined, and it's not recovering quickly enough for us to generate the necessary revenues from these capital investments. The Sovereign Wealth Fund, which we're going to be talking about just after the 9:30 news, so stick with me. But honestly, I worry down the road. We talk all the time. We've been talking for quite some time about fiscal guardrails, which have just been blown through time and again. And I heard the alarm sounded during all news mornings today with Christine Clark and Mark Douglas when they were recapping the spring fiscal update from the feds. And with these deficit projections, like, there's no path to balance anymore. And at some point, we're going to reach that tipping point. And our kids and our grandkids, I mean, anyway, it worries me. I probably worry more than most, but I think we have to get a handle on. I know we have to get a handle on this, because otherwise we will become a fiscally unsustainable nation. Not tomorrow, not next week, but if we can, at some point, this has to be reined in, and we can look at it and say, well, it's not going to affect us because we'll be long gone by the time we have a full-fledged crisis here fiscally. But our kids will still be here, or our grandkids will still be here. And I would like them to enjoy the country that I have enjoyed throughout my life. We've got to start figuring this out, in my humble opinion. On that 98 or the 89% raise thing, I want to be really clear about this. It is an itty bitty teeny weeny part of the overall regional budget. Okay, like the $7,400 that chairpersons of committees at regional council are getting paid extra to be the chairperson. It is not a huge amount, nor is the 13,000 that it will turn into with the 89% raise. Overall part of the budget. But that's not the point. The point is, in my opinion, that this raise is being taken, strictly taken by regional council, while the rest of us are out here trying to tread water at the grocery store, at the gas station, on our mortgages, etc. Right? Remember the stories that we have shared about the number of Canadians who are living paycheck to paycheck, right? The 1 in 8 households in this region that rely on the food bank for assistance. If you're taking an 89% raise in this economic time, you are out of touch with the people that you serve. That's full stop. I don't care how small a part of the overall budget it is. You're feathering your nest while the rest of us are trying to gather straw. And I don't think it's right. I got an email from Paul to that effect this morning, who writes to Mike at 570news.com, because my argument against this raise, however small the amount is in the overall regional budget, Paul seems to concur with the story that he read. I'm increasingly concerned, Paul writes via email, about how out of touch regional council is with everyday people and events. How do we recenter this? I used to share with my team, if you want to be busy, send more emails. But remember, busy does not equate to impact. Our culture was that if you ever said you were busy, or worse, too busy, we would ask, tell me more. So people would need to stop and think about why they were so busy. The most important tool staff have at regional council to control politicians is to give them huge packages of paper. This allows them to control the conversation. If ever regional council seems overwhelmed and ineffective, it is now. When the question is this worth it? Salaries always go up. Paul, appreciate the insights, and thank you for reading your local paper and sharing your thoughts on the show. It's just that increasing level of being out of touch with the community that you are serving. Simple as that. Every day before the show, I put a little video together to let you know what's coming up on the show. The video is done, and for some reason, I got too busy reading this morning and I forgot to post it. There is such an amazing cameo appearance on the video that you need to see it. So as we head to the news center now for your update, I'm going to get that posted. Check out our social media channels, which would be the Facebook page, The Mike Farwell Show, or Instagram or X, Farwell_WR. The video is going to be posted in the next few minutes because I want you to see that cameo because it's absolutely worth it. And then after the update from the 570 News Center, we'll talk about the Sovereign Wealth Fund here in Canada. What is it? What does it mean for us? That's coming up on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio. It is called the Canada Strong Fund. It's a sovereign wealth fund announced the other day by Prime Minister Mark Carney. What does it do? What does it mean? Are there other examples of such funds in the world? Let's talk more about it as we're joined by Elena Mantegaris, who's a senior advisor with Strategy Corp, a national public affairs firm. Elena, good morning.
Good morning.
What is a sovereign wealth fund? Let's start there.
Yeah, so this is a fund that a country pulls together ostensibly to invest in projects, right, around the world typically, in order to accumulate equity in projects and assets. And often those funds are then used to help advance domestic programs, whether they're social programs or other initiatives. So ultimately, it's about taking your natural resources, that you have, using the revenues from that to fund a fund, and then allowing future generations to benefit from natural resources that are, by definition, finite.
There have been a lot of comparisons made, and in fact, the Prime Minister himself referenced Norway's remarkably successful sovereign wealth fund. Is that a fair comparison to what Canada is attempting to do here?
You know, we're using the same terms, sovereign wealth fund, but the scope of the funds are really quite distinct. Norway's fund is independently managed, as is the one being proposed here in Canada. However, Norway invests internationally in order to invest in the best projects around the world and actually de-risk investments by diversifying both the types of projects it invests in and the geographies it invests in. In contrast, what Prime Minister Carney is proposing for here in Canada is a fund that would exclusively invest in Canadian infrastructure projects. And this is not quite the same thing. Here, you're now concentrating the geography, therefore elevating risk. And really, the types of projects being proposed are being selected politically rather than purely from a private sector analysis perspective on whether they are economically viable as projects. So you've got a bit of a mixing of different objectives in the Canadian model compared to the Norway model.
And as you describe that model, Elena, I can't help but think when we're talking about infrastructure projects in Canada, haven't we heard things like this before? Most recently, give or take 10 years ago, with the Canada Infrastructure Investment Bank, I think is what former Prime Minister Trudeau called it.
Yeah, it's the Canada Infrastructure Bank, and typically the CIB provides loans into projects. And the way Prime Minister Carney himself has described the distinction between something like the CIB and the Canada Strong Fund is one provides loans, the other is about having and owning an equity stake in a project that generates returns to the country. And in this case, also to Canadians, if they choose to directly invest themselves as individuals. There's going to be a retail investment arm to this Canada Strong Fund that is quite a unique twist on compared to any other sovereign wealth fund around the world.
One of the biggest questions I have, and we alluded to this already earlier this morning on the show in reflecting on yesterday's fiscal update, and that is the $25 billion in funding that we are going to seed this sovereign wealth fund with, for lack of a better phrase. I didn't know that we had that $25 billion, Elena. Like, where does that coming from?
Great question. Right now, essentially, again, without details, our assumption is this is coming from general revenues, which means it's coming from the government budget, which as a government already in deficit, it means it's being debt financed fundamentally. Now, having said that, latest sort of discussions right now that are emerging around this is that the federal government is also contemplating trying to monetize some federal assets in order to also contribute to this wealth fund. So when I say federal assets, think of airports right now that are publicly held. There's been a lot of discussion over at least the last decade, if not longer, about whether or not these should become privately managed entities. So if you were to transform a public asset into a private entity, then you have a source of resources to then, put into something like the Canada Strong Fund.
One of the other things I'm thinking about is how this, at least from my limited perspective, this has to be a long-term play. We can't give up on this in the short term. And the way election cycles work, I worry a little bit about that. But how confident are you that Canada can pull something like this off? That we might actually be able to grow this into something that is valuable to future generations?
So I guess I'd say a few things here. Certainly in Prime Minister Mark Carney, we have somebody with the knowledge and expertise who knows what parameters are really needed to grow a successful fund, right? So let's tip our hats off to his very strong economic background there. Having said that, we also have, examples in Canada where it's been well managed and where it's been poorly managed. And there I would contrast, say, the Alberta Heritage Fund that has been raided periodically for political objectives. And so the fund has not grown anywhere near what it could ostensibly have been had it not been interfered with politically. In contrast, you have Quebec's Generation Fund, which is growing and continues to grow on an annual basis through revenues that are added in there, as well as the Caisse de dépôt, which has a bit of a hybrid model. It's a big fund. It invests. It theoretically is independent, but clearly there's a mandate that fund has to invest in Quebec companies and grow Quebec, the Quebec marketplace. So we have a couple of good examples. We have an example that's a bit mixed, although even the Alberta one is trying to turn around. So hopefully with those lessons learned and the models around the world, we will take best practice and be successful at this.
When a fund like this gets raided for political purposes, is that to lower taxes, draw down debt? Like, why would that happen?
For all of those types of reasons.
Yeah.
Who knows? Whatever the flavor of the day is, right? Driving a political agenda. At the end of the day, these types of funds, they have to grow over a long period of time, which is why I have a lot of questions over the retail investment arm of this, right? Like usually when you and I invest in something, if we happen to have any money to do so, we usually have the freedom to withdraw our funds for whatever reason. Well, how do you allow that in and out process, if you will? If you really are trying to grow a fund, it only has heft and meaning if it gets to a certain size. So, lots of questions there over how the mechanics of this will work.
So glad we could get your perspective on this. Very valuable to our audience today. Elena, thank you very much for joining the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Elena Mantigaris is a senior advisor with Strategy Corp, which is a national public affairs firm. Can explain far better than I what this sovereign wealth fund is all about, how it is intended to operate. The two big concerns I have. I mean, look, on paper, in theory, love this. In theory. Also, to Elena's point, and I could not agree more, am I instilled with more confidence because it is Mark Carney who is proposing this and putting it together, right? The accomplished and experienced central banker. Yes, that gives me optimism. However, the two big questions I have. Number one, where's the $25 billion seed funding, if you will, coming from? Because we're running on debt. I was about to say fumes. You can't even say that. We spend, we don't balance, to go back to something I said earlier. I am incredibly concerned about our current fiscal trajectory. I have been for a long time, and it doesn't seem, based on yesterday's economic update, that there is any intention of reining in spending. None. All we do is spend, and we keep increasing spending, and we have no guardrails around it. There's no path back to balance. Anyway, I could go on. So the $25 billion is basically borrowed money. It's not as when Norway's sovereign wealth fund was started. It was started with a government surplus. That's what seeded the fund from the get-go. We ain't got one of those. So that's concern number one that I have. Concern number two that I have is the fact that this has to be a long-term play, right? We can't go raiding the cookie jar when it's politically expedient to do so. And I love Elena's point at the end with the sort of retail aspect of this, where we, as Canadians, put your money in kind of like a government bond. Your principal will always be assured. So you put in your $100, your $100 will always be there, but you expect to earn on your investment. So if you want to remove that investment at any time, how does that help the fund grow? But I don't see a whole lot of long-term thinking in government these days. Frankly, I don't see a whole lot of long-term thinking anywhere. Look at the gig economy. I could go, I want to hear from you on this. My concerns, $25 billion we don't have. So we're essentially financing this with more debt. Yippee. And number two, it's gotta be a long-term play here. Do we have the jam to be patient and prudent with this so that it can grow? I mean, we're talking a 30, 40-year time horizon here until it gets to something that would be meaningful. Can we do that? I have my doubts. Your thoughts. I love to get them on the show. We'll get to your calls right after this on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio.
So we have a couple of good examples. We have an example that's a bit mixed, although even the Alberta one is trying to turn around. So hopefully with those lessons learned and the models around the world, we will take best practice and be successful at this.
I like that word. Hopefully, yes, hopefully we will take best practices from around the world and be successful with this. That's Elena Mantigaris, a senior advisor with Strategy Corp, a national public affairs firm. We're talking about the Canada Strong Fund, our own sovereign wealth fund. I'm optimistic insofar as our Prime Minister currently, Mark Carney, has some expertise in banking and finance. That is a positive sign from where I'm sitting. My concerns, it's being seeded with $25 billion of additional debt. I don't think that's a great recipe for starting this. And this has got to be a long-term play. And I'm not sure we have the patience for that these days. Across the board, I would say that. But nonetheless, my overall concerns. I'm hopeful, but I think my hope or my optimism is measured in this case. What about you? 519-570-2545, star 570, and 1-800-570-5715. Let's go to the phones. Ranger Joe is with us. Good morning, Joe.
Good morning, Michael. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm excellent, Mike. Thanks for asking. No, you know what? I agree with you. I have the same concerns as you do a lot about this stuff, and especially when the government is involved in it. And one question that I have is, let's say millions of Canadians invest in this fund, and somewhere down the line, there's some equity earned in it. And my only thought is, or question is rather, when this equity gets split up amongst millions of people, there may not be that much money in the pot. You know what I'm saying? I kind of look at this as you know, when there's lawsuits against, like a class action suit against a company, and they say, if you want to be a part of it, apply, and all of a sudden there's like a million people applying, and you end up with like $28 each. You know what I'm saying? So I have some real concerns about this whole thing, to be honest with you, Mike.
All right, Joe. I appreciate the call. Thanks for weighing in. And on your point around a class action suit, this would be a little different. I would look at it more like, and look, I get your point, where, you know, what's left of the pie when everybody wants to start cashing in. But think of it like the Canada Pension Plan, right? Or any other pension plan, really. There must be sufficient funds within the plan to cover all of the people who will be paid out from said plan. So that part doesn't concern me a ton. The fact that you bring up the political aspect of this, I think, is worth noting, because as our guest from Strategy Corp said, these things can be pilfered, raided for political reasons along the way. And that, I think, should be a concern. It has to be, and the Prime Minister is talking about it being an arm's length body or fund that does not have the political interference. And she made reference to Alberta's provincial fund, if you will, the name of which slips my mind right now, but has been in the past raided for political purposes. What would those political purposes be? Drawing down debt? Would it be, introducing tax decreases, things like that, right, to ensure election or re-election, those sorts of things, right? You can move the money around. It becomes a shell game, and we'll just take money from over here and do this with it. Anyway, that part to me is worth expressing concern about, right? If there's going to be political interference in this, then it could also be used for political purposes. I love the idea. Everything that we've heard in the last 36 to 48 hours about Norway's multi-trillion-dollar fund now gives one reason to be really excited almost about the idea. But again, seeding it with more debt financing, and the fact that this has got to be a long-term play here. I hope that we can make this work. And I guess the devil is always in the details, and it remains to be seen. How many of us has the patience? Here's my favorite example of this. When you're thinking about the longer term, and remember, like I'm as cheap as the day is long. I've never met two nickels I didn't want to rub together and put in my piggy bank. I'm kind of just wired that way. But I remember talking to someone in municipal government, and I think we recognize, those of us who participate regularly in this show, we recognize that, government work ain't the worst work. It tends to pay 15 to 30% more than the private sector. The benefits are far better. Pension plans are offered, et cetera. So if you have the ability to think long term, right, it's a pretty darn good play to make if you can get into one of those jobs. And that goes from municipal right up to federal, right, for government employees. And I was talking to somebody in the municipal government sector who talked about how difficult it was, the competition for talent being the employees that run the operations of local government, because they'll go across the street for an extra $1 an hour, even if it's outside of the public sector, the government job. So they won't get the same benefits. They won't have the same pension plan down the road. But what they're concerned with is right now, the extra $1 per hour they'll be making. And so in order to retain talent, we keep upping that hourly rate, the wages in the public sector as well. But at some point, you're gonna abandon that. You can't keep racing against it. But imagine jumping from something that's got all of these long-term benefits associated with it because you want the extra $1 an hour right now in your life. That's the sort of thing that's happening. So that's where that's just where it gives me pause, where I think about the long-term play that this Canada Strong Fund has to be. I'll trust the former central banker on this, and I guess I'll find out if that trust is misplaced. An update on the way from the 570 News Center, and then let's mind Ottawa's business, shall we? The Blacklocks reporter joins us next on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio. Well, it is that time of the week for us. Wednesday mornings, just after our 10 a.m. update, we head to Ottawa to check in with our friends at the Blacklocks Reporter, the only reporter-owned and operated newsroom covering our nation's capital. And you get some stories there that you don't get everywhere else. You'll be finding more at blacklocks.ca, well worth the subscription. The managing editor at the Blacklocks Reporter is Tom Korski, who joins us for these weekly chats. Mr. Korski, good morning.
Morning, Mike.
It has been a morning here already on our show, Tom, that we're talking about yesterday's fiscal update. And listen, I'm as optimistic as the next guy, but boy, oh boy, am I having trouble with deficits and the no path to balance. What are you taking away from what we heard yesterday from Minister Champagne?
Well, the debt interest charges are staggering. $60 billion this year, heading for $80 billion by the end of the decade. That's just around the corner. That's not in the far distant future. Mike, I'm nobody's life coach, but I highly recommend that anybody, this is free, go to the library, I'm serious, ask for a book on personal tax planning. Typically, there's about a 3-foot shelf of books on tax planning, personal tax planning, in any decent library. Get the book, read it. They're coming for you, I'm telling you. And if you are able to incorporate everyday tax planning, small business, farmers, ranchers already do this. You can incorporate tax planning into your everyday life. You can anticipate what is about to happen. Because when they're talking about a structural deficit of 50, 55, 60 billion a year, that's their figures, not mine. And a debt interest cost at low interest rates heading for 80 billion a year, those are simply staggering figures. And they're coming for you, I'm telling you.
Yeah, and there's no end in sight, which is one of the real problems. I said earlier, like we can throw up our hands and say it's not going to impact us per se, insofar as what we've got left in front of us in life's runway. But our kids, our grandkids, these structural deficits, at some point, Tom, we're headed towards fiscal calamity here in Canada, unless we do something to reverse course.
No, there's no question about it. These are the magnitude of deficits that affect, well, they've spent the children's inheritance. Let's just use plain language. This happened in the 70s and 80s. Anyone who was in the workforce at that time remembers what it was like. You know, there was peer-reviewed research on this. This is a fact, that it impacted lifetime earnings for everyday Canadians who did not address tax planning in their everyday life. From the period of, we went 29 years without a balanced budget. When you hear the government today say, we are the best in the G7, and they're jib-jabbing about their record, they're talking about a 10-year period from 1997 to 2007 when Parliament balanced budgets. That didn't happen in too many countries. It wasn't because Canada's amazing. They didn't have a choice. They were staring down the bondholders. And we have paid a price for those 10 years of balanced budgets. Anyone who thinks it was a good time. Healthcare never really recovered, my opinion. Tuition rates went through the roof. They're never going back to what they were, even after inflation. It's hard. And this will affect household incomes. The kids will pay the interest on those bonds for the rest of their working lives. Yeah, you can help yourself if you educate yourself and incorporate tax planning. Do not wait for Parliament to help you. They are not going to help you. They will spend the money and say good night and good luck.
Take Tom's advice. Go to the library, check out that book, and incorporate some personal tax planning into your life. Okay, let's talk about General Motors, Tom, which is sounding the alarm to our MPs in Ottawa about the concessions being made for Chinese electric vehicles in this country.
To the point where they say it will hollow out the automotive workforce in this country. How's that for a grabber? This is the GM lobbyist testifying in the Common Science Committee on the Prime Minister's famous concessions to Chinese automakers, granting a quota of minimum 49,000 low-cost, really slave-made battery electrics, and ramping up 6.5% a year. Here is General Motors joining Honda and Toyota and other automakers in telling MPs, we don't think you know what you're doing. And this is going to be so far-reaching. Essentially, they have said that no one can compete with these vehicles. It's not because we're, running against some sort of master race of automakers. It's because they pay automakers $5 a day in China, and they're receiving hundreds of billions of dollars in state subsidies. It's called unfair trade practices, which is why Cabinet imposed a 100% tariff on Chinese battery electrics 2 years ago. GM lobbyist testifying in committee was very, very plain and saying, there's no upside here. There was an element of incredulity, Mike. Automakers don't understand what Canada saw in this agreement that the Prime Minister announced really off the cuff when he was in Beijing in January.
Tom, we knew this was coming as the floor was crossed multiple times and the Liberals worked their way to a majority in Parliament. Now, of course, that majority in Parliament gives the Liberals the opportunity to have majority control of all of those committees. What's the impact of this?
The impact is it kills real-time investigations, subpoenas, compulsion of to surrender documents, real-time investigations, and to contracting, political appointments, and federal spending. That's the bad news if you believe in accountability. And this is not without controversy. There are even MPs who stand to gain from this, who are kind of cagey on it. And for 7 years, we've had a minority parliament, and that has meant very damaging committee investigations. My goodness, they drove a finance minister out of town for accepting a gift from a federal contractor. That didn't happen in Zimbabwe. That happened right here in Lumbertown. What's the impact, though? Those investigations don't go away. All they do is spill into the floor of the House of Commons. There will be MPs who will be taking up House time trying to understand why, for instance, a Crown corporation would hire the finance minister's wife after he arranged the financing for the high-speed train that you and I have discussed, the fantasy train that's going to take you from your hometown to Montreal in approximately 20 minutes. It's going to be awesome.
That is I do have that fantasy, Tom. I don't want to talk too much about it on the air, but come on, 20 minutes. It's
Freud
great.
said that a rich fantasy life is the secret to mental health, Mike. Never forget that.
I shall not forget, sir. I shall not forget. Okay, when we have these conversations every Wednesday morning, I like to remind folks, as I do, that you are at the Blacklocks Reporter, a reporter-owned and operated newsroom that covers Ottawa. And you've made it clear and are quite proud of the fact that never a government subsidy has worked its way into your newsroom. Not the same can be said for all media outlets, including the National Observer, Tom, and some really interesting numbers you have unearthed there.
Extraordinary figures. And it took a long time to get these numbers. People may be unaware. This is on the level. Subsidies to newsrooms, in particular websites and newspapers, are secret. The figures are withheld by the Department of Canadian Heritage and the Canada Revenue Agency that manage the applications for really what is corporate welfare. Imagine a secret subsidy in a newsroom. Like you're hitting the bottom of the barrel. This is a climate news website. It's called the National Observer. And the figures here are very impressive. Find me a small business in our country that would not have enjoyed getting 23 free employees for the last 5 years. But the National Observer did. I'm serious. Not a subsidy. 100% of salary for 23 employees were paid to the National Observer under an arrangement from a group called News Media Canada. That's the publisher's lobby, and they have a judging panel, air quotes, judging panel. You'll never guess who was on the judging panel when the National Observer cut up the cash for 23 free employees in 5 years. Why? It was the CEO of the National Observer. Let me know, Mike, when you can start tapping the bottom of the barrel, because we're getting pretty close. And that was not all the funds they received. You tell that to small business farmers, ranchers. They are incredulous. 23 free employees.
I mean, I've tried to work for free for a lot of years here, Tom. They don't pay a whole lot these days in rate.
No, it's different when the check bounces, Mike.
Exactly.
That's completely different.
Completely different story. Tom, as always, appreciate the work you do and the time you give us. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Mike.
Tom Korski, managing editor at the Blacklocks Reporter, joins us every Wednesday morning just after our 10 a.m. update as we mind Ottawa's business. It's the only reporter-owned and operated newsroom covering our nation's capital. And as we allude to in that final story, they do not take, and they're quite proud of the fact they have never taken a subsidy, which means, of course, they also don't have any of those free employees. All right, it is that time of day where we are coming up on the moment we share with you the reminder, and I think we need these reminders that, not everyone around you is a jackwagon. They're not all getting free employees for their websites or their outlets or cutting you off in traffic. And I've received a number of emails about an organization that you seem to think is warranting some coverage in this daily reminder of the good things in this life. So we'll get into that and share a story that I think should warm just about even the coldest of hearts. That's coming up on the Mike Farwell Show this morning. Stay with us on 570 News Radio. You know, not too long ago, about 20 minutes ago, during the 10 a.m. update in the 570 News Center, those are the times of the day when the news center is giving you an update that I have the most minutes between times that I have to talk here on the show. So I take advantage of one of those most minutes times and head downstairs to the room here that we have at the hotel to grab a bite to eat because the breakfast was put out while I was on the air. And it's good just to have a little bit of sustenance as we go through the show together and get ready for a big day here in Windsor. Of course, we got that big game coming up tonight, Rangers and Spitfires. Josh Piercy is going to join me a little over an hour from now at 11:30 this morning to talk about that game, get us all set for tonight's big hockey match. But I go downstairs. I'm coming back up in the elevator from the lowest level here at the hotel, and the elevator stops one level up in the main lobby. And on board the elevator comes Moose, our bus driver. Gotta love the guy. Always hanging around. Great part of the team. So we ride the elevator back up the rest of the way. And you would not believe what this man did in the elevator. And I'm like, Moosey, like, why you got to be a jackwagon? You see? And so that just, I'm not going to go any further than that. I'll just leave it to your imagination. But I'm like, come on with your coming on. What is going on in this place? Why do you have to act like a jackwagon in my presence? I'm sure we encounter people like this every day where we just roll our eyes, shake our heads, maybe even as I did to Moosey today, ask them to their face, why you got to be a jackwagon? And you might be so inclined as to think that everybody is such a person, but they're not. And deep down, Moosey's not either. He was just in that moment being a bit of a jackwagon. I've received a number of emails from you, and you think it's worth noting, and you're right, and so we'll note it here. Not our full story for the day, which I'll get to in a moment. I think it's really going to warm your heart, and it reminds me of Yogi Berra. If you know Yogi, who was one of the most quotable athletes ever, the former New York Yankee. We'll get to that in a moment, but the emails you have been sending are about our friends just south of the border in Buffalo. And that's where the Sabres, of course, play. Tough overtime loss for them last night. They couldn't close out the Boston Bruins in their playoff game. But you have noticed that before every hockey game in Buffalo, they sing both national anthems, the U.S. and Canadian. Obviously, they're currying favor with us here in Canada because so many of us make that trip. And the fans will sing along. So even in the United States of God bless America, they know the words. There's a lot of us there too. That's partly why, because it helps. But I'll bet you your average Buffalonian knows the words to "O Canada," and they will sing along and finish "O Canada" even at a hockey game in the United States. And many of you have reminded me of that fact and said, "Yeah, this qualifies as the not everybody is a jackwagon part of your show." Certainly not in Buffalo. In fact, it's the only American city my beloved is willing to visit these days. She says, "I'll go to Buffalo, but I'm not going anywhere else. Not right now. We got to stay out of those United States." Hey, if that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do. Buffalo is a great city. And clearly it is full of people who are not jackwagons. So Thank you for reminding me of the dual anthem that is performed in Buffalo, even when the Leafs or another Canadian team are not there, and that our friends south of the border are still very much that. I'm going to go international with our story today. And of course, we always start the story with our punchy little song provided by you.
Not everyone's a jackwagon. Not every heart is cold. Not every promise made to you is gonna turn to gold then fold. Some people mean it when they say they care. Some folks will show up, actually be there. So don't close the door on every soul you meet. Not everyone's a jackwagon on this street.
All right, I am going international to Ireland and Australia for this morning's reminder that not everyone is a jackwagon, because you see, 88-year-old Michael Purcell passed away, and he had been living in Ireland, but his home was in Australia. So when the funeral was finally held back home in Melbourne, where he wanted to be buried, there was a heartbreaking reality. Michael Purcell's loved ones back in Ireland could not be there in person because there was a whole lot of flight chaos sparked by the war in the Middle East. So what could have been a quiet and lonely farewell turned into something that was, quite frankly, unforgettable. As the service approached, the team at the funeral home recognized that no one would be there in person to represent Michael Purcell's family. So with the family's blessing, they reached out to their community and invited anyone who felt moved to attend Michael Purcell's funeral. What happened next was, quite frankly, remarkable. On the day of the funeral, people showed up in such large numbers that the chapel reached full capacity, and some folks even had to be turned away. Others stood outside, still wanting to pay their respects. As the hearse passed by, mourners formed a quiet guard of honor along the road. For those who attended, it was more than just a service. It was a reminder of the goodness that still exists in the world. And across the world, Michael's family watched the service through a live stream, witnessing the compassion of complete strangers who stepped in when they could not. They wanted to make sure that Michael Purcell's final farewell was attended by even strangers. Which brings me to Yogi Berra, one of the most quotable athletes ever. And I'm pretty sure it was Yogi who famously once said, "I always go to my friends' funerals. Otherwise, who's going to come to mine?" But I love that. The community in Melbourne would not let Michael Purcell's last ride be one taken solo. And that's your daily reminder that not everyone is a jackwagon. If you've been reminded of that yourself and you want to let me know, send me an email to mike@570news.com. Share the story, and we just might share it here on the show around 10:20 every day. Not everyone is a jackwagon. Off to the 570 News Center we go, and then let's talk about truth, storytelling, and independent thinking in these turbulent times. Isn't that kind of what this show's all about? That conversation coming up on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio. We are going to have the opportunity, thanks to a collaboration between our Waterloo Public Library and my favorite local independent bookstore, Wordsworth Books in Uptown Waterloo, to spend an evening with a couple of accomplished Canadian authors. And whilst spending that time together, engaging in important conversations, I would say, for our times. To join us in this conversation this morning and get us set for the event coming up in just a couple of weeks, David Worsley is here, co-owner of Wordsworth Books in Uptown Waterloo. Mr. Worsley, good morning, sir.
Good morning, Mike. Thanks very much for having me around.
It's always a pleasure. I'm sorry we couldn't do it in studio as planned, but my schedule has conspired against us, and here I sit in Windsor this morning, but I'm glad we can have the conversation this way because it is an important one, I think, right now for the times that we are in. As we get into that, can we start with the authors themselves? Tell us a little more, if you would, David, about Kim Eklund and Ray Robertson.
The best part of the whole job is being able to invite authors to come to town. Everything else is really just administration. But these are two favorites. Kim Eklund, it should be enough that she's an ace of a novelist, and she absolutely is. But the new book, I would argue, answers one of the most important questions going, as does Ray's. We'll get there in a sec. Tell Others. The new book from Kim Eklund came out a couple of weeks ago. Tell Others, Storytelling for a World in Turmoil. She simply asks, and great books, that's what they do. They ask questions. She asks, and I think answers really well. What can fiction do? Why is it necessary when the world is, well, a dumpster fire? When everything's a mess, what is it about fiction specifically that can provide a roadmap, that can help us to figure it all out and do so with humanity and depth and decency and bring the best of us to a question like that? And Ray Robertson. Ray is a favorite of mine, has been for years. Ray Robertson, I think, is what would happen rather if you took a great novelist like a Richard Russo or a John Irving, locked him in a room with food and water and Warren Zevon albums for a month. You'd get somebody like Ray Robertson. You'd get the cool older brother with the kick and vinyl and just the wisdom of age. His novel, The Right to Be Wrong, asks, too, what would happen, or what happens, rather, if or when we, as a society, or even as just two people, lose the right to disagree over an issue, politics, religion, art, name it. What happens if we lose the ability, and indeed the right, to disagree over an issue amicably? Where does that put us? Taken together, I would argue that both authors, Kim and Ray, answer two of the most important questions before us. Answering them to town and Waterloo.
Yeah, and the opportunity for us to take part in this event on May the 12th, I think, is just incredible. And kudos to you and the Waterloo Public Library for bringing this together. I want to start on the question posed in Kim's book, and as somebody, obviously, David, in your line of work as the co-owner of a bookstore, I mean, what place does fiction have for you in the world today?
Well, I would suggest, and I'm not knocking anything else, but nonfiction typically, and more so of late, because that seems to be the way the world is going, I'm going to write a book and espouse a viewpoint, and I'm going to hit one note really hard, and I'm going to keep punching. And I think there becomes an element of, well, eat your vegetables. Agree with this. You have to agree with this, because if you don't, you're wrong and you're less than, and everything's a mess because you don't agree with my take on something. And this is where, well, okay, but now we're just being sold to. Fiction does not, and indeed cannot, work like that. Humans are complex. We're complicated. God knows we're fallible. Fiction has to represent all of that. Otherwise, it simply is not, oddly enough, truth. Otherwise, it's mere propaganda, like a lot of nonfiction can be. Not is, but can be. Fiction is different than that. It has to tell a messy, complicated story in order to be done properly. That's the difference.
When it comes to Ray's book about the right to be wrong and the ability for us to share different viewpoints, I think sometimes, and it's my sense from the work that I do, David, that some of us feel as though we're not allowed, for lack of a better term, to express our contrary viewpoint, which of course I don't believe is true, but I think I understand why folks might feel that way. These are turbulent and hyper partisan times in which we exist today.
And that's exactly it, isn't it? If one is comfortably on the center left of a political spectrum or believes X, then when we are confronted with things that don't fit a viewpoint or a worldview, it can be uncomfortable. That's the point. when you are a free market conservative and you believe X, and an issue comes to the fore that messes around with that, it forces us to re-examine our lives, to re-examine what we think and believe and how we act because of it. A book like Ray's is uncomfortable because he simply refuses, and again, the Rangers are in Windsor, I understand it. We are not just left-wingers or right-wingers. Human beings aren't like that. Yes, stay in your lane when you're playing hockey, but you're not supposed to be one thing all in. And Ray forces the issue. But what I love about both these books, again, this is not eat your vegetables nonfiction. We're not going to sit here for an hour and have somebody ram a viewpoint down our throats and then, go home. Kim's book, Tell Others, despite everything, she uses her own experience and her own interaction with a great deal of writers. And Tell Others is joyful. There's great relief in humanity and love for everything. Ray's book, like a lot of smart people, Ray is extraordinarily funny. The Right to Be Wrong is a smart, funny screed that he just happens to be right about. Ray's a guy who went to school and took a philosophy degree. So, with a little humor, a lot of philosophy, and a great deal of fun, he makes a bunch of salient points around what it means to be able to stop and say, well, wait a minute, which isn't done very much anymore. Social media has a lot to do with that. And our, need to tribe up. Well, this is what I believe, and therefore this is my team, period. And I won't hear dissension on my team. Well, that's not how anything should work. And Ray really bolsters that thought.
How does a community benefit from opportunities like this, David, to attend an event such as this with both of these authors present and engage in these conversations? How do we benefit as a community?
Well, I think it's a space to examine real questions in real time. And the mere fact that we are in a room with other people as opposed to just sitting behind phones or behind screens and lobbing grenades, any schmuck can do that. And I think it's become clear now, again, given that even at a political level, various states, provinces, countries are saying, well, wait a minute, we need to put some parameters in place here because, for a slew of reasons. We have a crisis with mental health among kids. We have, as you say, hyper-partisanship to deal with. And now suddenly it seems like we can't get anything done. Conversely, when you put people in a room and make it a space whereby you have to examine stuff in real time with smart people who know what they're talking about, but can still allow for, another viewpoint, which is, again, the whole point of the evening, I think. How do we not come away feeling changed? Dare I say, maybe even a little better.
How can we participate on May the 12th? Is there a registration required?
There is a registration required. Thanks very much, Mike. We are continuing a partnership with the Waterloo Public Library because they're great and accessible. And the East Side Library in particular is a gorgeous space. Registration for both events, or for this event, beg your pardon. There's another great one on May 19th, but let's stick the one in front of us. Ray and Kim's event on May 12th is at 7 p.m. There is registration through wpl.ca.
Just celebrated their 150th. We had a chance to talk about that last week, or are celebrating, I guess. It must be a year-long celebration. It should be when a library reaches 150.
If I made it to 150, I'd damn sure celebrate all year.
Amen. Amen. All right. We will point people to WPL.ca. We will remind folks that this is a continuing collaboration between Wordsworth Books and the WPL. I meant what I said off the top, my favorite local independent bookstore there in Uptown Waterloo. Love the work that you do, David. I love seeing your name appear on letters to the editor in my daily paper, and really enjoy these conversations. Thanks for being here.
Right back at you, sir. I read your stuff religiously in the paper. I don't always agree with it, and that's the point. Good man.
Exactly. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye, Mike.
David Worsley is the co-owner of Wordsworth Books in Uptown Waterloo. I'm glad he said what he said at the end. So first of all, let's just remind you of the reason for the conversation today with David, and that is the evening with Kim Eklund and Ray Robertson, these two authors that are being brought to our community for this evening on Tuesday, May the 12th. It's 1 hour. You can register at WPL.ca, Waterloo Public Library, WPL.ca, and sit down for these conversations about their new books. Kim's Tell Others, Storytelling in a World of Turmoil. What role does fiction play today? And then you've got Ray's latest, which is The Right to Be Wrong. And do we? I really feel as though some of us feel as if we don't have that right to be wrong, so to speak. And listen, I don't blame you if you do feel that way. Polarization and partisanship, hyper-partisanship is very real, which brings me back to what David said at the end. I really do enjoy, and every once in a while, I do enjoy seeing his name attached to a letter to the editor in the Waterloo Region Record. And David and I have gone back and forth on emails from time to time, something that he wrote, something that I wrote, because I have a weekly column space in the Waterloo Region Record as well. And we don't always see things the same way. So we'll just have a little back and forth. And I think it helps because obviously David and I know one another in real life. So there's not a whole lot lost in translation through emails, right? It's not like we're just going, even if we were going back and forth on social media, again, knowing the other person, like personally knowing them, not just knowing their profile or knowing what they do. I think that changes things, which is why an evening like this at the East Side Library in Waterloo is important, because we will engage in thoughtful dialogue in real life, which is obviously the far better way to do it, right? Because David and I know one another, electronic communication would work just fine. If we exchanged a few comments on social media, it would also work just fine because we know that other person. And I don't think there would be a whole lot lost in translation. If you only know the other person insofar as what their profile online tells you, or the job title that they have, or the opinion that they've expressed, it can be a whole lot more toxic, those exchanges, can't they? What I'm curious to explore, though, and our phone lines are always open, because I wonder how you do feel about this. Do you have the right to be wrong today? Do you feel as though it's okay for you to express that contrary viewpoint? I'd be curious as to how you feel in that sort of space, in these highly partisan, highly charged communities today. It's tough. It's tough. We have to navigate these things. But do you feel as though you have the right to be wrong? And by wrong, I mean only have a different viewpoint than mine. Because I might, if we differ on something, I would think, yes, you're wrong. We'll take your calls right after this. Stay with us on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio. Okay, I'm going to start talking because that's the only instruction I have. And I think that means that you can hear my voice and we are on the air. But I'm not certain of anything other than there has been a little gremlin in the system. So as that hiccup gets worked out back there, I will try to form coherent thoughts over here as we approach 11 a.m. and your update in the 570 News Center. Yesterday, after the show, I went out and did the most important thing to do while one is in Windsor. And that, of course, is enjoy some of the very best that Windsor has to offer. And when it comes to the very best that Windsor has to offer, it is the pizza. Windsor is famous for its pizza. I have told you before about Antonino's Pizza, the best pizza I have ever eaten. Is it the crust? Is it the diced pepperoni? Is it the canned mushrooms? I'm not sure which it is. Maybe it's the combination of all of those things together. And when all of those things are put together, it becomes the very best pizza that I've ever eaten in my life. And that's what I was able to enjoy yesterday. The evidence has been documented on our show's Facebook page. You can always check that out. Just look up the Mike Farwell Show on Facebook, and you'll see the picture of Antonino's Pizzeria. There are many others here in Windsor, pizza places, and depending on who you're talking to, there might be a different opinion on which is the best. One of the guys here in Windsor actually recommended a different place to one of my colleagues on Press Row the other day. But I stick with Antonino's. It's been my favorite since I first tried it. So as much as I've been teased about adding so many extra calories and so many extra pounds while I'm away, and it's true, like I really need to watch my caloric intake. But in my defense, I walked more than 5 kilometers both ways to get that pizza yesterday. That's got to burn off some of the calories then consumed when the pizza was enjoyed, right? I'm guessing so. Took Josh Piercy with me to introduce him to Antonino's Pizza. I told him that we would do that because he hasn't had the chance yet. He's still a rookie on this OHL tour, right? First year is coming to an end for him, but we haven't had Windsor Pizza together yet. So off we went. And he came up with an excellent idea after we walked from the hotel 5+ kilometers to Antonino's. He said if he was looking at his phone and thought, if we take a different route home, we could stay down by the water the entire way, which turned out to be an absolutely glorious walk. I don't know what your weather was like back home through the day, but we got sunshine and nice mild temperatures, not too hot. But in the afternoon, as we walked back along the water, it was simply spectacular. And credit to JP for coming up with the idea of a different route home. We walked there along a very busy street, walked back along the water. Beautiful waterfront here, really well taken care of, well designed in Windsor, and just a fantastic way to get back to the hotel. So when Josh joins us just after the 11:30 news today to get ready for the game tonight between the Rangers and the Spitfires, we'll find out how he felt about that Antonino's Pizza, his first experience with the Windsor Pizza. But it's one of those things that if you've been here before to the city of Windsor, you know they are famous for their pizzas, and you got to try one when you're here because they are something else. Could I open a franchise in Waterloo region? Windsor Pizza comes to Waterloo. No disrespect to our local pizza franchises, but holy, do we get some good eating here in Windsor. It's Wednesday morning. That means after your 11 a.m. update, we will be joined by the one and only Blue Jay Hunter to talk about those injured Blue Jays and more coming up on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio.
The Whiz Kids had won it, Bobby Thompson had done it, and Yogi read the comics all the while. Rock and roll was being born, marijuana we would scorn. So down on the corner the national pastime went on trial. We're talking baseball, Klazuski, Campanella, talking baseball. The man and Bobby Fella, the Scooter, the Barber and the Nuke. They knew them all from Boston to Dubuque, especially Willie, Mickey, and the Duke.
And that signals it's Wednesday morning. The 11 a.m. news is done. Do you know where your children... No, wait a minute. That used to happen 11 o'clock at night. Wednesday mornings at this time on our show, it's Blue Jays time with the one and only Blue Jay Hunter, who joins us in studio to talk all things Blue Jays. And of course, you are welcome to participate because nobody knows Blue Jays better than Blue Jay Hunter. Phone lines are 519-570-2545, star 570, and 1-800-570-5715. Ian Hunter, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Oh, I think we need Ian's microphone on.
Let's try this one. Good morning. I'll go back to this one.
You are fine, my friend. Good morning. Thank you for being here with us, even though I'm in a remote studio. Ian, I don't think we've gone a week in the past 3 without talking about the battered, bruised, and injured Toronto Blue Jays. We're now adding Max Scherzer to the list.
Yeah, that was a bit of a surprise. I mean, his last few outings have been really not that great. And we heard that he was kind of dealing with a forearm strain. So I wonder if he was kind of pitching through that because he started the season strong, 6 innings in his very first start, and he had another quality start recently. But just as of late, he's not been able to even get through like the 3rd inning. So he's on the IL now, and I put something on X earlier this week just about the number of pitchers the Blue Jays have now gone through this season. We're now, I think they started spring training with about 8 or 9 starting pitching options, and I think they are now back to 4 that they have. Actually, technically 3 because they added Patrick Corbin, so that would have been a 10th. It's crazy how we thought going into spring training, starting pitching depth was a strength for the Blue Jays. And, they added Max Scherzer. It felt like, they've got 6 or 7 quality starters here. And very quickly, a month into the season, they've already lost Cody Ponce for the year. Shane Bieber's probably not going to be back for a while. Trey Savage, thankfully, returned to the starting rotation last night. But, we'll see what happens with Scherzer here. I think probably won't see him for a few weeks at least.
I'm glad you mentioned Trey Savage. I mean, I don't think we could have this conversation this morning without mentioning his name. On one night, we realized that Dylan Cease actually is mortal, and the next, hey, Savage is back. Thank goodness.
Yeah, I know he just kind of, aside from, we'll forget the home run that he gave up in Game 7 of the World Series last year, but his very last start in the postseason in the World Series, he kind of picked up where he left off last year, 5.1 innings of 4-hit ball, no walks, 3 strikeouts. Wilson Contreras hit a double. He was the second batter of the game, Mike, and a Red Sox hitter did not get past second base the rest of the night. I mean, Savage was just completely dominant. I mean, he wasn't striking everybody out, but he was not giving up hard contact. He was inducing a lot of ground balls. The no walks was a really promising sign. So he's been I know we're only 1 game in, but he's a much needed shot of adrenaline for this Blue Jays starting rotation.
I could not agree more. Okay, Blue Jays fans are certainly engaged with this team, and our phones are getting busy already. So let's get there and let you have the chance to talk to Blue Jay Hunter this morning. We'll start with our buddy Preston Paul. Good morning, Paul.
Good morning, Mike. Ian, how are you today?
We're doing well. How are you, Preston Paul?
Oh, better after last night's game. Anyway,
for sure, yeah.
I'm thinking of coming out of retirement if we have any more pitchers go down. I can tell you that.
Yeah, we might be getting a call into the bullpen here, you, me, and Mike. We'll have to see.
Yeah, but watching Trey last night, it was refreshing. It just shows you that you change speeds, you move the ball up and down and get their eye level moving, and you have some success. So it was good to see, and feel bad for Scherzer, that's for sure.
Yeah, we kind of have, it's funny, 2 polar opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of guys' careers, right? Like, I think there's probably been some talk lately with Scherzer is this it? Because, this is his 19th season in the big leagues, 41 years old, I believe. So, he's in the twilight of his career, obviously. And then you've got a guy like Trey Savage who, it's crazy. He's 22 years old. Like, he is just a young buck. Last year at this point, he was pitching in Single A. So just the maturity that he's shown to be able to, he does not look intimidated by any big league batter at all at 22 years old. He's extremely composed. And his release point, it feels like he's coming over the heavens with every single pitch that he throws. So, I mean, that's really going to be hard for batters to pick up, but such a fun pitcher to watch too, right? Like he's just incredibly efficient. And hopefully this is the start of a really bright future for him.
Yeah, it looks good for us, that's for sure. Just love the way he pitches. And again, 22. Oh, to be 22 again, like he's not even in his prime.
Yeah.
So just hope he stays healthy, and let's go Jays go, and go Rangers go tonight, guys.
Absolutely. Thanks for calling, Paul.
Thanks.
Great to hear from you, Paul. And yes, we'll be cheering on those Rangers tonight here in Windsor. Dan is with us to talk some Blue Jays baseball with Ian Hunter as well. Dan, good morning.
Good morning, guys. Pleasure to talk to you again.
Thanks for calling, Dan. What's your question?
It's not a question. It's just a comment. I think the Jays are turning the corner. They're getting some guys back, and they just look really composed, and everybody looks like they're having fun again, because when all those injuries were happening and we were struggling, obviously it's not a whole lot of fun. But, no, I'm not going to beat up on Hoffman. They elected not to send him to AAA and just kind of put him in some lower pressure situations. I guess that's good to give him some confidence, but I just think the team is playing better baseball, and it's good to see.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they've got they're coming off 2 series wins in a row. They got a potential for another series win this afternoon against the Red Sox. I think it was last week, Mike, we might have been talking about, this was before the Jays had made the decision on Jeff Hoffman to go with the closer by committee. And, within a week, we've got Louis Varland, who's 4 for 4 in save opportunities. And as
Louis.
And as you mentioned, Hoffman's kind of settled into a lower leverage role. I thought he looked tremendous not pitching in the 9th inning last night. It's maybe with a little bit
less pressure.
Yeah, a little less pressure. Funny thing is, and I think I talked about this last week, prior to signing with the Jays, Jeff Hoffman was the setup man for the Phillies, right? So he was always pitching typically in the 7th or 8th inning, not with the game on the line, typically not facing the most dominating top of the order. So, maybe this is the new role for Jeff Hoffman, but I think as of late, it's been working out really well. Louis Varland looks like a natural in that position for sure.
Just one more quick point, guys. Sorry, thanks for the time. I think that was why Schneider was so big on him. Like, I think he was the one that made the decision to make him our closer 2 years ago. He had a good run initially, and then he fizzled out, and it was like Schneider was afraid to admit he was wrong or something. It was really kind of disturbing. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, I think that case, it's, if you're a front-facing manager, you always want to show your support for your players, even if they're not performing well. I think guys like Hoffman knew he was not performing well. To not have your manager in your back all of a sudden, maybe that wanes the confidence a little bit. And I think just shaking things up, like, I don't know if Varland's pitching lights out right now. I don't know if that's going to happen all season, but at least it's shown that, hey, we've got some other options. If the game's on the line here, we could go to Varland, we could go to Hoffman, or even Tyler Rogers too, if you need to.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's nothing's set in stone. I think it's just whoever works well in the matchup. I think you just call that guy out of the bullpen. I don't think anybody's egos are being hurt by not being the quote unquote closer anymore.
No, we have too much talent for that. They're just, yeah.
Yeah, and I think for the most, if you ask players to a man, they will say, hey, whatever helps the team win, puts them in the best position. To get a save, that's great. It's nice on their baseball reference page. But again, at the end of the day, I think these players want to help their team win. And if it means pitching in the 7th instead of the 9th and not getting the save and not getting the closer's entrance, I think Jeff Hoffman's probably okay with that.
Well, look at a guy like Straw. He'll do anything to win. You know what I mean? Bunt again. Like, he doesn't care if he ever swings the bat.
Yeah, Miles Straw, leadoff hitter for the Blue Jays. I didn't think I'd ever see that either. But
right?
With all the injuries to this team, they've really had to adapt on the fly here. But that seems to be working for now.
So much talent.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thanks for calling in, Dan. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Some really good points there. And since Hoffman is now in the conversation here, Ian, let's just talk a little bit more about Louis Varland if we can, because you mentioned 4 for 4 in save opportunities. And as you pointed out last night on X, does anybody remember Louis Varland, the starting pitcher, anymore?
Yeah, it's wild. I mean, 2 years ago, the Minnesota Twins, they started the season with Louis Varland as a starting pitcher. It wasn't until he came back from injury on the IL in 2024, I believe it was the June of that month, they converted him back into a reliever and had some strong numbers, especially leading up until the trade deadline last year. I think his ERA was 1 something with the Twins. And now you're starting to see, okay, this guy's a real weapon. Like, he has the triple digit heat. He has a wicked fastball, doesn't tend to walk a lot of guys. And, aside from that hairy outing on Saturday against the Guardians, I think the Blue Jays breathed a sigh of relief. It was, I believe it was bases loaded, 2 out. Jays were ahead 2 runs, and Varland got the final strikeout. But, last night, striking out the side. And technically, if you by certain statistics that you look at, Varland's been the most valuable reliever in baseball this season. That's to go along with Padres closer Mason Miller. Like, Varland's been lights out. So I know, we try to sometimes fast forward and think, oh, he's going to be like this all season long. He's going to have some rough bumps, just like Jeff Hoffman. But I think if you're a Jays fan, you're seeing Varland coming into these games the last few nights, definitely you're breathing a sigh of relief. I think there's a lot more confidence there than there was in Jeff Hoffman in recent games.
I know there is from me, that's for sure. Ian Hunter is the Blue Jay Hunter. He joins us every Wednesday morning at 11 here on the show to talk Blue Jays baseball, and we'll keep doing just that after this quick timeout. Stay with us on the Mike Farwell Show. 70 News Radio. Wednesday mornings at 11 a.m. here on the show, we welcome the one and only Blue Jay Hunter to our program, talking Blue Jays baseball. Ian, something that came up, I think Dan mentioned Miles Straw willing to do whatever it takes to get on base, bunt here, bunt there, whatever it is, etc. And you mentioned, of course, him being used in the leadoff spot because of all of these injuries the Jays are dealing with. So on that front, what do we know? Anything, especially around George Springer in that leadoff spot? I thought I heard something recently that he's getting closer, but what can you tell us on that front?
Yeah, so I believe he's going to be activated probably within the next few days. I don't, at this point, with the game being 3:00 this afternoon, I don't think we will see him for this game against the Red Sox, but very highly likely that he gets activated for this road trip going into Minnesota as well. So they'll be getting some reinforcements there. Addison Barger is probably going to need a rehab stint. So I would imagine he's probably at least a week plus away. Alejandro Kirk's still undergoing rehab after that thumb injury. So I think he's still probably on a timeline for, I don't know, June, mid-June, potentially before the All-Star break as well. On the pitching side, Jose Barrios had a rehab start last night in AAA. Unfortunately, his numbers didn't look that great, but he is a warm body that I'm sure the Blue Jays would welcome back into the starting rotation, because right now, technically, they only have 4 with Savage coming back, plus Eric Lauer kind of doing a spot start here today. So those guys are probably the closest ones we're going to see. Again, with, like we said off the top, with the Scherzers thing, it still feels like every other day there's a Blue Jays player going on the injured list. So I think any day where there's not an injury announcement, it's kind of a blessing for this Blue Jays team.
It's funny because every time I hear another one, I just kind of roll my eyes. And we already talked about Max Scherzer, but that's been really the defining characteristic of this early part of this Jays season, right? How they've just been beset by injuries. However, it feels as though despite all of that, they might be starting to turn a corner a little bit here. You mentioned another chance for a series win this afternoon.
Yeah, I think so. Like I obviously their record at 13-16 is not indicative of the talent that's been on this team, but they have just had so many of their key players go down. Like when you lose 1/3 of your batting order in terms of Kirk, Springer, and Barger, that's really hard to make up. You had, Nathan Lucas suffering from vertigo as well. So he was in the lineup, but not really present just because he was dealing with that. So yeah, this is not a middling 500 team. That it's not a fourth place team. I still think they have a lot of hurdles to overcome here. I still feel like the offense could kick it into another gear. Vladimir Guerrero Jr., we have yet to see him really go off, but April is traditionally a really slow month for him. So I think they are if they get these reinforcements within the next few weeks, I feel like they should be turning the corner here. And I look around Major League Baseball, the Boston Red Sox and the Philadelphia Phillies, they just fired their managers for similar records than what the Blue Jays have right now. And I'm kind of surprised we didn't get a call yet about why John Schneider hasn't been fired. And to kind of answer that question for anyone who wanted to ask it, I think Schneider gets a little bit more runway here just because the Blue Jays did go all the way to Game 7 of the World Series last year. I feel like, and again, the injuries, he really hasn't had the team. He hasn't had the horses in the stable that he needed. So I think Schneider gets a pass in that regard. If this team continues to underperform, maybe Schneider's on the hot seat a little bit more, but I don't think there's many Jays fans clamoring for his job to be taken, even though this team has underperformed as of late.
Yeah, I think Blue Jays fans are just concerned about the walking wounded that we have and when they're going to come back into the lineup. But you're right. If we get to June, with a lineup that's fully healthy and still underperforming, then maybe there's a conversation.
Yeah, I think John Schneider gets a little bit of grace here because how is he supposed to manage a team when he's calling basically anybody and everybody up from AAA? And again, would firing the manager suddenly wave a magic wand and bring back Alejandro Kirk or George Springer or help Vladimir Guerrero Jr. kick it into the next gear? I don't think so. I think those organizations, what the Red Sox and the Phillies were going through, they've had great expectations these last couple of years and they just have not performed. So I think that's kind of compounding disappointment. Whereas the Jays, like I said, they get a little more grace. They get a little more runway because they had such a good year last year and they've been decimated by injuries thus far.
Yeah, and maybe John Schneider then can keep dining out on that Game 7 World Series appearance last year because, hey, the Phillies and Red Sox have been looking for a while. They've got the team there. The expectations are there, haven't performed, and so they pull the trigger early this year. Is it okay, by the way, real quick, that I'm kind of enjoying the Mets not doing well? I don't mean to speak ill of Bo Bichette, but I'm okay with that,
Yeah, I saw that floating around. I know there was that clip of Bo Bichette sitting in the dugout, just kind of staring out onto the field after the Mets had gotten swept by the Colorado Rockies. And yeah, I don't think any Jays fan is taking having fun with that, but it's just, you look across Major League Baseball and it's like, oh man, the Blue Jays are in a tough spot, but there's so many other teams like the Mets, like you mentioned, for example, the Red Sox, the Phillies, who also have astronomical expectations and they're sitting at the bottom of their divisions as well. So yeah, it's something about the Mets. I don't know. Is it New York? It must be when teams.
It might be New York.
When teams falter in New York, I think other franchises root for that. So I don't blame you for kind of smirking when you see that.
Appreciate it, buddy. Appreciate this every week, too. We'll talk to you again next Wednesday.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. We'll talk to you then.
Blue Jay Hunter joins us Wednesdays at 11 here on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio. Just a quick reminder also, along with that big Rangers game tonight, look out UKW Titans looking for some sports back home. How about a fifth and deciding game in the Basketball Super League Championship versus Sudbury? That game taking place at the Memorial Auditorium in Kitchener. I strongly recommend taking in the basketball game and taking an earbud with you, because then you can listen to Josh Piercy and I with your Rangers Spitfires game tonight here on your home of Kitchener Rangers hockey. And to get you ready for that big game tonight here in Windsor, Josh Piercy joins me on the show this morning. Quickly, before we get into the game that's about to come, you've been around this league for a full season now, but it's still your first. And this was our first opportunity to finally, we took the time yesterday afternoon to get you some Windsor pizza. I know I built it up a whole heck of a lot, JP. How did it land?
You built it up in terms of the pizza itself. You created another build up by saying, let's walk there.
Oh, yeah.
You and I think, put in 13K in the feet yesterday, which is pretty good. And we downed a whole medium pizza. So I will say, if you get out to the Windsor area, folks, make sure you try Antonino's, specifically the Riverside location. The woman there who served us was incredible. And it's really... the crust is what makes it.
And let's to be clear, it was not a medium each. We shared a medium,
yeah.
And then we walked 13K.
Evens out.
I think it does.
That's good math.
Okay, let's talk about, I mean, we were already, and I mentioned this earlier, you, me, Moosey, downstairs in this hotel earlier today. You and I, well, you're already doing your job. I'm prepping for this show. And we take a couple of minutes to talk about the magnitude of this game here in Windsor tonight. We got ourselves a big one tonight, Josh.
Yeah, this is, I think, a pivotal moment for not only this series, but maybe even the Rangers season as a whole. Because, Game 3 in the lead up, I think that there was a lot of positivity around Rangers Nation. You felt like games 1 and 2 were very close against a very good team, but that they just had that little edge more that would give them potentially, we were thinking about maybe even 4 wins in a row. Didn't work out that way. You kind of got the steam taken out of you beginning in game 3 when you take those 2 high sticking penalties. One of them's a double minor. You go down early. You look a little flat footed. It never really worked in that game. They never really felt like they were going to make a comeback in that one. So a little bit of steam taken out, but if tonight the Rangers can get a win and then come home to the odd on Friday, that will look like a foregone conclusion. That Friday game is a win as well, and they move on to the finals. But a loss here tonight, I think, really changes the dynamic of this series. I think a 2-2 series going back home, that is another heck of a fight. So either way, every game left in this series is going to be a bloodbath.
All right, let's put on your rose-colored glasses here for a moment, because we are in the Rose City of Windsor, and the comments were made after the game on Monday that this series could just as easily be 2-1 Spitfires. I mean, the margin of difference has been that slim. So obviously, the Windsor Spitfires have every reason to believe at this moment that they can not only win tonight, but still win the series. Why would the Windsor Spitfires believe that?
Well, it's a game of inches, and in this series, it's been maybe even less so than that. Maybe it's centimeters or millimeters. We're talking about posts being hit throughout those first 2 games that could have changed the dynamic of the series. I do think that the Rangers did unequivocally play better than the Spits did in games 1 and 2, but that doesn't mean that the Spits aren't capable of putting in a better performance than the Rangers. I think we've seen up and down games from certain guys in their lineup. They haven't had all of their guys and all of their lines really rolling at the same time, but we saw a better game in game 3 from guys like Jakob Fibiger. We saw a good game from Alex Ferrand. And I think if those two, Green Tree, Villeneuve, if they can all get rolling at the same time in the same game, then they're a very, very dangerous team. And they only need Joey Costanzo to have a really shut down night to quiet the Rangers down. So yeah, there's no question. I mean, this organization here in Windsor is one of the best run in the OHL, and time and again, year after year, they're competitive. Coach Walters, I think, is an excellent guy to have at the helm. So yeah, I would be worried about them, but I'm less worried because of the way the Rangers operate. I know this coaching staff throughout yesterday and today would have been hammering home with these guys the gravity of this game coming up tonight, and I think they're up to the task.
When you're getting contributions from guys like Alex Ferrand, you're in pretty good shape. Green Tree, of course, scored his first goal of this series in game number 2. I think Nathan Villeneuve has kind of grown into this series and has really established himself as a terrific pest for the Windsor Spitfires. Jack Nesbitt, I think he clearly lost the decision in the tilt with Jared Woolley on Monday night, but Nesbitt stood toe-to-toe with a big man and was going off the ice, still throwing up his arms to get the crowd into it, and I think it did ignite the team a little bit. So, look, we knew coming into Monday that we're going to see the best we had seen from the Windsor Spitfires to date. I would argue that we did see that. Their forecheck was terrific at taking away time and space from the Kitchener Rangers. So the key will be, and you touched on this with the Rangers coaching staff, not only hammering home the gravity of the situation, but whatever adjustments they make to counter what the Spitfires did, I think, very well on Monday night with their forecheck and taking away that time and space. But now put on those blue and red glasses. You're the Kitchener Rangers tonight. What do you got to do to go back home with a chance to wrap this thing up on Friday?
Yeah, I think maybe the spotlight was a little bit bright, being 2-0 up coming into game 3. High sticking penalties, you never like to take them. You kind of feel like they're a little bit of a lazy penalty. So maybe you come out in that one and like I said, spotlight's a little bright. You take a couple of silly penalties right away. You go down early in that game. You're away from home. Then the crowd's into it. That beefs up the Spitfires a little bit more, and they're really banging you into the boards and getting physical with you. So I think a good start is what you need to get into this one. And the Rangers were so disciplined through games 1 and 2. If they can get back to those basics and keep really producing on special teams, both on the power play and the penalty kill, I think they'll be just fine. I think we saw one of the weaker games from the Rangers collectively in game 3. So if they can right some of those wrongs and have the impressive performances like we've been seeing from them consistently through the playoffs, I think they'll be just fine. And I do think that they are a better team, more skilled team than the Spitfires. So both teams on their best day, I do think that the Rangers are up. And they've been shifting around the lineups a little bit. I think when those lines get more comfortable with each other, when if we do see a return from a guy like Hayden Ellis, who's been so useful for the Rangers throughout this postseason, he could be a real help to this team tonight.
Hayden Ellis not in the Rangers lineup on Monday. Weston Cameron got his first taste of OHL playoff action. Nathan Games of the Windsor Spitfires left game 3 early, did not return, so they had to put the lines into a bit of a blender too. But you mentioned Jakob Fibiger earlier. We talked about Villeneuve and Ferrand, the 3 big acquisitions by Bill Bowler here in Windsor. And among the Rangers acquisitions, of course, Sam O'Reilly and Jared Woolley. And I think that's going to be the difference maker as we move into a critical game like this one, because O'Reilly and Woolley have been here before. They understand these moments completely. And I think that's one of the biggest areas the Rangers get an edge here.
And I think that the guys, especially the younger guys, the less experienced guys, will turn to O'Reilly and Woolley tonight to try to see what their mindset looks like, see the way that they approach the lead up to this game, see the way that they skate out there for those first couple of shifts. And, a younger guy like Cameron Arquette, who had an awesome game in game 3, he sees the way Sam O'Reilly approaches this series and approaches, what it takes to win. I think that means a lot for his development. And I think it means a lot just specifically for the way their headspace is approaching this game, because there's a lot of pressure on these guys right now. I think, a lot of people back in Kitchener have a lot of expectation for this team, and rightly so, because it's well built and it's well drilled and well coached. So, like you said, some of that championship mentality definitely needs to be utilized tonight.
It's not every time we do a show in the remote studio in a hotel room where we both have chairs to sit on. You're not on a luggage rack today, JP.
No, sir. No, we're it's tight quarters here.
It's tight quarters here.
We're not in Sault Ste. Marie anymore. We had our own little kitchenette there. I mean, that was incredible. Not taking down anything from Windsor. We had a beautiful walk along the riverside yesterday, and I might even go try and get a little fresh air now. But no luggage rack for me today. I got a real chair.
Josh got his Windsor pizza from Antonino's yesterday. He's going to get his fresh air this morning, and we'll be on the air together, Josh and I, with your Harris Law pregame show tonight at 6:30 right here on your home of Kitchener Rangers hockey. It's Rangers Spits, game 4, and it's a big one. We'll have it for you. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio. Just over a month away from the annual Walk for Alzheimer's in our community. Comes up on May the 30th. And Lawrence Lutgendorf is the Director of Fund Development and Communications with the Alzheimer's Society of Waterloo Wellington. Larry, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you. How about yourself?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good now that the snow and the ice is gone, and the weather seems to be turning a little bit. But anyway, we're hopeful for a nice warm day. Yeah.
It almost felt like we weren't getting here, didn't it? I'm with you. Yeah. Like, it's gone now, and by Saturday, May the 30th, when we're walking for Alzheimer's, it's going to be beautiful for sure. We can count on that, right?
I've got my request in, but who knows?
As we get started here, Larry, let's talk a little bit about the Alzheimer's Society of Waterloo Wellington. As a society, how do you support folks living with Alzheimer's and their families as well?
Well, we provide a range of services for people, and we provide them all at no cost. We provide counseling services. We provide public education. We have some therapeutic recreation programs that are well received. Minds in Motion, a new program called The Social, which is an adult day program. And we have a memory cafe. One of the biggest things that we do is provide services for care partners as well. There's some care partner support groups and education around what it takes to actually take good care of somebody living with dementia.
If you are providing all of those services and programs at no cost, where does your funding come from?
Well, we get some funding from the healthcare system, about 60%, but that means about 40% of our money has to be raised every year. And the money that the walk goes for in particular goes for our therapeutic recreation programs like Minds in Motion, like The Social and the Memory Cafe. These programs are all very well proven to, help people with dementia, but they receive no government funding at all. So that's why we have to raise every dollar that we spend for these programs.
What do we know about dementia and Alzheimer's today, Larry, that we continue? Because I know this is, evolving research, et cetera, but what do we know about this today?
It's one of these diseases that is a conundrum. We know that there is a degeneration in the brain of the synapses, and so electrical impulses in the brain aren't getting through. The brain tries to find ways around it, and it's pretty good at that. But this is a degenerative disease, and it continues to eat away at the nerve endings and so on. And so it progresses. It progresses slowly. And, people can still live normal lives for quite a long time. We do know that diet and exercise, they all have an impact on the brain. And brain health is such an important factor. And so making sure that, you get a good night's sleep every night, that you stay socially connected and engaged, that you walk and exercise every day and you eat healthy. These are all things that help your brain fight against the whatever is that's going on, the degeneration of those synapses that we've been talking about.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I know you and I have had the opportunity in the past to talk about those ounces of prevention, if you will, along the way: diet, exercise, etc. And I think that ties in very nicely to what we do on Saturday, May the 30th, and that is Walk for Alzheimer's, right? We're getting outside, we're getting some exercise as we raise these critical funds as well.
Yes. I mean, the walk is an intentional way to get people active, and it's done in a big group because being socially connected is also very important. That's probably, diet, exercise, Those are all good things. Cognitive stimulation, that's some of the things that we do in the therapeutic recreation programs. That's all very important. But that special sauce of those two things is the social connection that you have between people. It forces your brain to actually remember, I have, that's Mike. I'm talking to Mike, and Mike is doing this, and we're together doing the exercises, and it just is the whole package of brain stimulation. And so that's why those three things, exercise, cognitive stimulation, and social connection are very important.
How can we get involved in the walk and help you towards that $80,000 fundraising goal?
Well, there's a number of ways to do that. This year we have a number of new locations. We do the walk in 4 locations around our region. Our offices have just moved to 82 Wilson, out behind Fairway, and we're walking now from the Wilson Park, which is just across the road from us. In Guelph, we had a new location at Riverside Park, and Cambridge is still in Churchill Park, but in Mount Forest, our location in North Wellington, we are at the Cork Street or Cork Road Park in Mount Forest, which is also a new location. So in order to register for the walk, you would just go to our website, alzheimerww.ca. That's singular, alzheimerww.ca. And on the site, there's a button there to click to register for the walk. And if you're having trouble registering, there's also an instructional video on how to go through the registration process.
AlzheimerWW.ca will point people in that direction. And, you talk about that catchment area, if you will, from Cambridge in the south to Mount Forest in the north of that area, I suppose, Guelph to the east, and then here in Kitchener. That is quite a lot of people that you must be serving through the Alzheimer's Society of Waterloo Wellington.
Yes, we have. We go by the statistics, the Stats Can statistics of people that are over 65, and we're bumping up right against the 200,000 people mark that are in our area that are over 65. And so, the people that we serve, the numbers grow every day. In Canada, the stats are showing that by 2030, so that's just 4 years from now, there'll be about 1 million people living with dementia of some kind. And the stats, dementia is not just an individual disease. It impacts entire families. And that's why this walk is also a family-friendly event. Bring your pets, bring your kids, bring your aunts and uncles. Everybody can come on out to help, because it takes a whole family to support somebody living with dementia. Caregivers, single caregivers can't do it on their own. They have to, they bring in their family members, their kids, their brothers and sisters, and so on. And so that's really one of the things that, it's so fun about the walk. It brings out whole families. So
I wish you sunny skies and mild weather on Saturday, the 30th, Larry. Appreciate the time on the show and the work you do at the Alzheimer's Society. Thank you very much for being here.
Mike, one last thing. You'd mentioned $80,000 as a target. Yes. That's the target for just the Kitchener location. We need to raise $165,000 across the region through our 4 locations. So
165, and we're going to get you there. We're going to get you there because people are going to go to alzheimerww.ca, and even if they're not walking, they'll find somebody who is and make a donation. 165,000. You're right. I was just on the Kitchener page. Larry, thank you again for being here this morning.
Thank you, Mike.
Larry Litkendorf is the Director of Fund Development and Communications with the Alzheimer's Society of Waterloo Wellington. Online, alzheimerww.ca. The $165,000 fundraising goal through Cambridge, Kitchener, Guelph, and Mount Forest. It's Waterloo and Wellington for the estimated 200,000 older folks in our community who may be at risk or on their way towards dementia or Alzheimer's. The best we can do is help out in any way that we can. All right, I've got to get you to the 570 News Center for an update. And then it is that time of day. Phone lines open to you. We started with lots of calls today. We got a full hour to take more with Talkback coming up. Join the conversation on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio.
Take out the papers and the trash, or you don't get no spending cash. If you don't scrub that kitchen floor, you ain't gonna rock and roll no more. Yakety yak.
Don't talk back.
Just finish cleaning up your room. Let's see that dust fly with that broom. Get all that garbage outside, or you don't go out Friday night. Yakety yak.
Don't talk back.
It is that time of the day when we open the phone lines real wide and say, tell us what's on your mind. Reflect on the issues of the day, or tell us the thing that you would like to make the issue of the day. That's why we have the Talkback Hour from noon until 1. Phone lines open to you at 519-570-2545, star 570, and 1-800-570-5715. Among other things, we have a federal government that continues to spend wildly. There is no end in sight to the deficits that we are running. Not surpluses, my friend. Oh, no, not those, but deficit after deficit after deficit with no plan to get back on a path to balance. I don't know how you feel about that, but I am gravely concerned about this. I worry about our children and our children's children and the kind of economic mess we are creating today, willingly, knowingly, and not showing any real desire to clean it up. Maybe I'm overreacting to it. I don't feel as though I am, but hey, if you've got thoughts to the contrary, or if you've got thoughts that are similar, you're welcome to share them on the show. We also talked earlier today, again, because probably it appeared in print right there in front of your eyes in this morning's Waterloo Region Record edition, the 89% increase that committee chairs on regional council have voted to give themselves. Yes, I know there are only a handful of committees, so it's only a handful of money, if you will, being handed out. But when a consultant says those committee chairs could get an increase of 3% and the committee chairs decide for themselves, or the council decides for itself that those committee chairs should receive 89%, that strikes me as something that is very tone deaf in a community where so many of us are struggling. You're still getting paid. I'm not asking anybody to be racing to the bottom here. You're still being paid to be a counselor. You're still getting extra to be a committee chair. I don't know that you need that much extra, at least not right now, to be a committee chair. And we've had some conversation about that on the show today. Of course, it's a big game tonight here in Windsor between the Rangers and the Spitfires. Whatever it is that's on your mind, we're always happy to engage in the conversation. Let's start this afternoon with Dave, our friend from Cambridge, Farwell's Force, member number 47. And for the purposes of today's show, Dave wishes to be known as Citizen X. I have no idea why, but we'll find out. Hello, David.
Hello, Mike. I hope that didn't go on over the air, my name, but anyway, be as it may, if consequences be it as they may. I want to talk about briefly about the reporter on the shenanigans in Ottawa. And he said the one line that really struck a chord. And he said, they're coming after you. Now, I've been paying my taxes for decades. And up to the last couple of years, I've got a refund. Now, in the last 10 years, I've used a sign-in partner using a financial institution to log into CRA with all their security. Now, last year, around mid-April, I filed, I knew I had to pay. I filed. And their software had a glitch. And it screwed up a number of taxpayers. But anyway, be it as it may. So then I had to pay an additional amount of money, which, fine. They did their thing. I paid it. It was several months after I had to pay the final amount in addition to the first amount. So what happened last year? They assessed a penalty to me. And so I turned around and said, I'm not taking this. So I fought it, and I won. So I paid the full taxes. That was fine. But I was reimbursed for the penalty. Now, that was last year. So what does that have to do with this year and the comment by your guest? Well, again, mid-April, and everyone knows you got April 30th as the deadline. So I turned around, went online again, used the sign-in partner, and I turned around and did my taxes carefully, and I turned around and then I held the button to file until it was before April 15th, but on April 15th I was waiting. But I got an email from CRA notifying me I had some mail in my inbox on CRA website. So I logged in again on using the software, the sign-in partner with the financial institution, and I turned around, logged in, went through all that security stuff with CRA, and I was able to pull up the email in my CRA inbox, and as usual, it was a standard nonsense email. So that's fine. So then I hit the file. I was allowed to continue to do my tax, finalize my tax, because they would not allow me to do that until I clicked in on that extra step with CRA. So I did that, did it all. And as usual, I said one-time payment for everything. And I turned around, did that, and for a change, they wanted to know, this is the software, they wanted to know where my bank's location was and all the issue transit number and the whole bit. So I gave it. So then they turned around and below it said 5 business days.
Dave, I'm so sorry, but we're like, I'm not sure where you're going with this, but we got it. Like, I've got other callers waiting.
Bottom line is,
yeah,
the 5 business days was the day I was online, not the April 30th. So a couple weeks ago, I had to pay my whole tax bill. So I'm just giving you a heads up to all your listeners. That guy talking, your reporter, he was not kidding. That's all I have to say, Mike. Have a great day.
Okay, Dave. People don't kid around a lot on the show. Our guests bring areas of expertise that I certainly cannot. I kid around from time to time, but we do our utmost to make sure that the guests that we bring you on the show are not kidding around and they're giving you the straight goods. I'm struggling to make the connection between the dots there. I got a little bit lost, but maybe that was just me. Jersey Bill has been waiting. We'll go to him next on Talkback. Good afternoon, Billy.
Hey, when it comes to sports, I'm always interested in the math and in different things that you can see developing. And I think in terms of the Kitchener Rangers, right, there's a pattern. Actually, that's what I was trying to say, the patterns. They got a clean sheet in their first round. They didn't lose till the 4th game in the second round. Now it's the 3rd round, and they lost in the second game. So
lost in the 3rd game.
No, it's the 3rd game. Sorry, the 3rd game. So I could see them winning the next 2 and then keeping the pattern going. I guess it's going to be the Brantford. Looks like it'll be the Brantford Bulldogs, and they could lose the first game there and then win the next 4. That would keep the pattern going. And then, of course, the Memorial Cup, that's a totally different kettle of fish. But that would be great. They could actually use the Memorial Cup to go back to the original thing and just run the whole table there. That would be fantastic for the Kitchener Rangers. I hope that the pattern holds.
Billy, I appreciate the call. I'm sure many Rangers fans feel similarly. I see where you're going with the pattern. I think that would mean that Kitchener would lose the second game, right? Because they didn't lose till the 4th game in round 2. They didn't lose till the 3rd game in round 3. So would they lose in the second game in round 4? Should they make it there? Either way, I know where you're going with that, and we also hope the trend continues, that the Kitchener Rangers keep winning the series that they are playing. And I'm glad you brought up the Brantford Bulldogs. I probably should have done that earlier today on the show. A big 6-1 road win for Brantford last night. They now have a 3-1 series lead on Barrie, and they're going back to the Madhouse on Market Street in Brantford for game number 5 in that series. Barrie has to win 3 in a row to continue their playoff run. So it does look like the Brantford Bulldogs are going to win the Bobby Orr Trophy in the Eastern Conference. We shall see. Let's go next to Kyle on Talkback this afternoon. Hello, Kyle.
Good afternoon. Game day tonight, right? Did I get that correct? Or the game tonight?
Game day, baby.
Game day. You know what? Everybody call in. Let's go Rangers, baby! Where's Josh Piercy? I don't hear him yet. Let's go. I'm pumped up. I cannot wait, buddy. This is it. Come on. Let's go Rangers! Da, 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 da! Let's go Rangers! Da, 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 da! Thanks, Mike. I appreciate it. Can't wait to hear you tonight. Thanks, Guy.
Thanks, Kyle. Appreciate it. Josh Piercy was on 45 minutes ago. It's funny. That's the second time today. And I get it. You can't be with me for every second of every day. And I totally understand that. You have a busy life. I appreciate whatever time that you do give me on this show because I love having you here and I love engaging in the conversation. But it just reminds me of an email I got from Ron, and he's some kind of upset with me because I mentioned it at the beginning of the Talkback Hour about this 89% increase that Regional Council has voted itself for chairs of the various committees of our Regional Council. And Ron was up one side of me and down the other about not making it clear that this is just committee chairs that are getting the raise, not the entirety of council, which of course is untrue. I just told you again, it's for committee chairs. But I guess Ron didn't hear the entirety of the segment we did or the time I devoted to it earlier today. And so he's upset. Doesn't think I'm making it clear and we're not being fact-based. And I'm just going to, again, make it clear. I was clear earlier. I'm being clear now. The increase is for committee chairs. And the consultant said 3% would be an appropriate increase, and council decided to make it an 89% increase for committee chairs. But just like with Kyle, in a different manner, I suppose, you didn't hear Josh Piercy earlier, but he was here as we got you ready for the game. Ron didn't hear, I guess, the entirety of the conversation this morning, and then he gets upset. I can't help it if you don't hear the whole thing. But I promise you, we deal in the facts here and only the facts, okay? And we use the facts that we know to form our own opinions on things. And I remain of the opinion that it is a very out-of-touch, tone-deaf thing to do. Take an 89% increase when people in your community are struggling with affordability and you claim to understand those struggles. I'm going to take a break. I'm going to catch my breath. And we're going to continue the Talkback Hour on the Mike Farwell Show today. This is 570 News Radio. The Talkback Hour is your opportunity every day to have your voice heard on the show. Phone lines open from noon until 1. Preston Paul is with us, Farwell's Force member number 45. Afternoon, Paul.
Good afternoon, Mike. Let's go Rangers. That one's for Kyle.
Nice job.
I hope I didn't hurt your ears, buddy.
Not at all, pal. Not at all.
Right on. So you're going for a good walk this afternoon?
I hope to get a walk in before I go. It's a tight turnaround today, though. By the time I sign off here, I got about 2 hours and change before I got to start getting ready and help pick up the coffee order and make sure we're all set for the game.
Yeah, you're making me hungry talking about that pizza, you dirty rat.
Listen, you don't come to Windsor without having Windsor pizza, my friend.
Yeah, any chance you can bring one back with you? I'll eat it cold.
Not this time. Not this time. But one of these days we'll make it happen.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to wish you good luck tonight and have a good game. And we'll talk to you later in the week, buddy.
All right, pal. Thanks for the call, Paul. Always good to hear from you. They do this thing here in Windsor called a half-baked. First of all, if I hadn't gone to the pizza joint yesterday, I won't have time today between the show and having to leave for the game. But if I had gone to the pizza place today and I wasn't getting on the bus tonight, and I was in my personal vehicle, I would try the half-baked idea. Because what you can do is get a pizza that's just that, half ready to eat, the other half to take home, and then put in the oven yourself and let your family enjoy, which I am yet to do. All I do is come on the road to Windsor, brag about the pizza, and then my beloved's like, you think I don't like pizza? And of course, she's my beloved. I know she liked pizza, and I owe her some Windsor pizza. There's no two ways about it. But the half-baked version is not one that I'm taking advantage of on this particular trip. Maybe on another trip. We shall see. Let's go next to Phil from Stratford on Talkback this afternoon. Hello, Philip.
Good afternoon, buddy. Actually, I'm right now in Baden on my way home from Waterloo, getting the cheapest gas around, and it's pretty sad when we think 164 is cheap gas. My question to you, I know how frugal you are. So when you check out of your hotel room today or motel room today, do you take all the shampoo and shower caps and Kleenex and everything with you?
Do I strike you, Phil, as the kind of guy that needs shampoo or shower caps, out of curiosity?
Well, somebody in your house might. You never know. Or maybe the dog gets the shampoo.
I see. Excellent question. And as always, appreciate the call. As frugal as I am, I actually don't do that. I mind what I spend. I tend not to take things from other places. But hey, buddy, now that you've given me the idea, who knows what I'll stuff into my suitcase before I leave here today. Let's go next to Larry on Talkback this afternoon. Larry is a first-time caller on the show, and gosh darn it, do I love that. Hello, Larry.
Hello. I'm blind, and I have a problem, and the same problem has occurred twice, and it's such a simple solution, and I'm surprised that your company or companies haven't thought of it. I've got milk container, and I normally buy like a half a gallon because it has a screw top. But they gave me a quart, and I can't see where the arrow is. And of course, I opened it the wrong end. And I don't know if you've opened the wrong end of milk before. But it's a problem. Now, there's a little arrow there, but the arrow is so small that I can't see it. So why don't they make the arrow bigger?
All right. I'm curious, Larry, as to how my company how could my company help with that? Out of curiosity.
Well, I think that somebody should be. Who do you talk to about a problem that's so simple? Like the answer is so obvious. Who you seem to be the only one that can get away with getting some things happening.
You know, Larry,
No, it's true.
I'm going to put you on hold here for a second because you said you have another question, right?
Yes.
Okay. Can you hang on with me through the news update?
Of course.
Okay. Thank you, sir. I'm going to put Larry back on hold. I love it. First time caller and thinks that like this is the place to come and get your problems solved. Larry, I love you. And hey, I'll jump on board. Dear producers of milk containers, make the arrow bigger. Let's help Larry out here, for crying out loud. What are we doing anyway? How hard would it be to make a bigger arrow? I ask you that, you producers of milk containers, you. We're going to get the update from the 570 News Center. We'll come back with part 2 of Larry's call, the first time call, part 2. And there's a line open for you on Talkback. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio. It is your Talkback Hour, and let's get right back to those phones because Larry had a two-parter. The first one was about milk containers that don't have a large enough arrow on them so you know which end to open. Come on, producers of milk containers. And Larry wants to get to part 2. Okay, Larry, thanks for waiting. What else is on your mind today?
Oh, the same day. This is about 3 days ago. I had a pressurized. I think it was Vaseline. Like it was like for not for soap, but for what do you call it? Like Vaseline or for your skin. And there is no arrow or anything on that. There is just a hole in it, and the hole sprays out. And when I pushed, I could feel the hole with my finger, and where the hole is, if you can imagine, it sprays on me. So there is no arrow or no way of indicating where that thing comes out of. So it both happened the same day. I had the milk carton went all over me. By the way, the spout is written on real big on the inside, but it's only you have to open it to find the spout. Like in other words, you only know where the spout is when you open it.
I hear where you're coming from.
And the second thing there was this Vaseline thing. It was like a skin conditioner, and it was a pressurized spray container. Like it was a small bottle with power in it, like it sprayed out. And again, I got spray all over me because both of them happened the same day. Like I had the same problem with similar problems, but with two different containers.
Larry, listen, I appreciate
I don't
you
think
calling
I'm making myself clear. It was a pressure.
I think I get you, and I appreciate you calling in today and sharing those experiences. I believe it or not, and if you missed earlier with Larry before our news update, he explained to us that he was visually impaired. I've had the same problem with containers that squirt liquid, even though I am fully sighted. Or, I mean, I wear corrective lenses now, but I have my sight. My takeaway from this, it's a good reminder, isn't it? And sometimes we can just take a step back from things and realize the sorts of challenges that others are going through in our community every day, be it a visual impairment, a physical impairment that, makes it more difficult to get around, whatever the case may be. I encountered a fellow with a motorized wheelchair here in Windsor the other day and kind of got himself wedged as he was trying to leave the Tim Hortons in the doorway. But he was an expert. Like he was able to back himself up and straighten himself out and get through that door without an issue. But again, my takeaways from Larry's unfortunate stories are that there are everyday things that we take for granted, and it's not the same for everybody. So good reminder for us. And Larry, I appreciate you sharing those stories. Doug is with us next on Talkback this afternoon. Good afternoon, Doug.
Hi, Mike. I sent you a detailed email, and I'll just be brief here. I listened to your pregame talk with our good coach, Hocus, and Josh Percy's interview with the opposing coach, in this case, the Windsor coach. I like your pregame show. Always listen to it. And when Rangers aren't on TV, I always listen to you and Josh because you give a good description of calling the game. I do prefer to watch the game on TV when it's on, as I can see all the action. I want to add to the TV telecast. I think that Chris McLeod, the Windsor TV announcer, does a fine job over there calling a very biased game, giving the opposition credit if they warrant it, and he often gives Rangers credit, and understandably cheering for his his Spitfires as they are his team and the home team. In this case, as that is his job as a broadcaster. I also like his partner, the color commentator, and I can't remember his name. Like your announcers, they are very professional. We must keep supporting OHL hockey and the Rangers, and that's my regards. But yeah, so as I say, I've lived in Kitchener probably quite a long time, over 40 years. I'm a Torontonian originally. Anyway, so I cheered for the Rangers. I used to be in the clothing business. I traveled to Windsor, and I was a very great town, very nice people, and dealt with Freeds of Windsor, the clothing store there, very good, and other stores who are not there anymore. And I'm now semi-retired. But anyway, no, I think you do a good job, and I just wanted to just talk about Chris McLeod, because I think he's a great man, good announcer, and he's a good tribute to the OHL, as you people are up here. And that's about it.
Doug, I appreciate the call. It's nice to hear from you today, and I concur completely with the idea that we must support the Ontario Hockey League. I don't think that's very tough for us in Kitchener. It seems to be kind of ingrained in us, which I think is fantastic. But across the other 19 markets, there are varying degrees of support for the team. In fact, we were chatting, and when you get kind of embedded in a city like we have been here in Windsor these past few days, and you get to immerse yourself a little more in the game, we've learned that it's not going as well as it used to, let's say, here in Windsor when it comes to the support they get for the Spitfires. There was a fair deal of commentary following the game on Monday night with the number of empty seats at the WFCU Center. And let me tell you, it's a beautiful arena, first and foremost. Secondly, you've got a really good hockey club this year, and it's the latest in a series of really good hockey clubs here in Windsor. The Spitfires organization won 3 Memorial Cups in a 9-year period, beginning in 2009 and then ending in 2017, winning 3 Memorial Cups. 2009, 2010, and then again in 2017. But apparently it's kind of died off a little bit, the interest and the fandom in the years since. And that's kind of tough for me to wrap my head around from the outside because, again, it remains a very good hockey team. It's been very successful, 4 90-point seasons in the past 5 years, back-to-back division championships. I could go on. But the point being that for whatever reason, the fans haven't been coming out in the same number as they had been. And I can't help but wonder if, in part, it's got to do with the economy in general and perhaps the Windsor economy specifically. But I do hope this game continues to succeed in the markets in which it operates. And I don't think there's any concern about that in Kitchener. I don't think anybody's, waving a white flag and saying we're giving up on the market of Windsor. It's a very proud, traditional junior hockey market. And getting 5,000 and a bit like they did on Monday night is a decent crowd by anybody's standard. You would just think for a playoff game of this magnitude at this time of the year when the team is so far into the playoffs, you might see a little bit more. I guess they've had all of 2 sellouts all season long here in Windsor. So anyway, just a little bit of an aside on that. But Doug, I appreciate where you're coming from. I'm glad you appreciate the work that so many of the fine broadcasters in this league are doing. And I'm glad that you always join us for our Harris Law pregame show, which we will do again tonight starting at 6:30 as we get you ready for the big game tonight here in Windsor. We still have time on Talkback today if you want to have your voice heard on the issues of the day, or you want to bring forward something that you think should be the issue of the day. Something I had made a note of, and we had so many calls at the beginning of the show today, I didn't get a chance to talk about, but I will share with you because I think it's important to know, since we are into an election year, our public school board continues to do things that make me raise my eyebrow. And I think you need to consider very carefully beside whose name you are marking an X when the municipal election comes around in October. So I'll tell you the latest about the public school board that's got me raising an eyebrow, and you can tell us what's on your mind as Talkback continues here on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio. Let me tell you a little story about the Waterloo Regional District School Board. Yes, our public school board here in the region. You know that school board, right? The board that wouldn't know how to manage our money if it was written in plain, bold lettering for them. Why do I say that? Well, because as I have documented, they made an absolute mess. That's the nicest word I can say. It's like a great big old plate of spaghetti all mushed up. That's the kind of mess they made of the hiring and then necessary firing of the former director of education with our public school board. Remember, a school board of trustees, it doesn't have a whole hell of a lot to do. It really doesn't. Create the budget, follow through on that. They don't set curriculum, whatever, and they have to hire the director. And they bungled the hiring of this director so badly that it's very difficult to determine what, if anything, the director did or contributed while holding the role and getting paid hundreds of thousands of dollars every year. And then, of course, having to dismiss him comes at a cost. And we don't know what that cost was. But I've put together some pretty conservative numbers, and I think we're north of $1 million. And then there is all of the infighting within this public school board and the money spent on litigation, not only the infighting amongst one another, but how about the shutting down of a presentation that was before the board and the subsequent lawsuit that came from that. It just goes on. This group of trustees has demonstrated that they are very poor stewards of the public purse. Which brings me around to today's story in the Waterloo Region Record, which talks to us about the strategic plan. Now, this is something else that a board would be responsible for. And this particular plan, the board has been told, is lacking in clear direction and follow through. So I share this with you as someone who has, in the past, sat as a volunteer on various boards of trustees and been a part of the creation of a strategic plan. And in this case, our public school board has been told that a strategic plan should help people understand what matters most, what's being prioritized, and what change is intended. This is where the current plan felt weakest. A lot of participants of our engagement activities described the strategic directions as broad, repetitive, or difficult to translate into a clear sense of what will change for students, families, staff, and schools. If stakeholders can't clearly see what is being prioritized and what change is intended, the plan cannot act as a real guide for decision-making or accountability. That comes from a consultant who undertook that engagement. So again, let's get this straight. It's the job of the Board of Trustees to create the strategic plan. And this particular strategic plan was so poor, they needed somebody to come in and help them out with it. So guess what that does? It costs us more money. I'm trying as hard as I can to understand what in HE double hockey sticks this board has done in the entirety of this term or the term before. Because the term before was the hiring and then firing of the previous education director. We've got this strategic plan that's full of all kinds of lovely language. I'm going to be blunt about this, okay? It is the very definition of a virtue signal. Oh, we're going to put this flowery term in here. We're going to put that flowery term in here because these things sound nice on paper, but they had zero idea how to translate that signal of virtue into a measurable action. It ain't rocket science, folks, to create a strategic plan that has measurable outcomes. And if this group of trustees cannot do that, I submit to you that this group of trustees should not be elected again. Simple as that. And I'm gonna throw a little aside in here for you, okay? This gets me fired up because they don't earn a lot of money. It's not really so much about that. It's the fact that they've been elected to these positions of leadership and trust in our community, and they are completely incapable, it seems, of delivering on that. How did we even get into this point? But here's the aside. So I'll remind you, I don't think any of the current individuals on the public school board should be reelected to that board. I think we need to clean the slate and start over again with people who understand better how to hire an education director, how to create a strategic plan, right? If any of those names that are currently on the school board show up on any other place on your municipal election ballot in October, again, this is just me suggesting to you, you get to do what you want. It's your ballot. But I would not put an X beside any one of their names for anything. I'm sorry. I'm only saying, I don't mean anyone ill. I am saying this is a performance-based job. And the performance has been utterly lacking. Unless the performance you're looking for is the signal of a virtue with no measurable outcome, or the performance of fighting one another on the board constantly. If that's the performance you were looking for, by all means, fill your boots and mark your X beside every one of those names again. But I don't think that's what any of us are looking for. And that's what this board has delivered to us for consecutive terms now. Enough is enough. Imagine doing such a poor job with one of the few jobs you have as a trustee, creating a strategic plan. You do such a poor job with that, you need to spend more money to get a consultant to help you out, figure out the direction. What are we doing? What are we doing? I'm going to get off my soapbox now. I get a little wound up on that stuff, though. We're not asking a ton of you. Just do the job. Mary is with us on Talkback this afternoon. Let's go back to the phones. Mary, good afternoon.
Hi, I love your rant.
Oh,
and I'm
thank
with
you. Am I ever glad to hear your voice?
Oh,
People have been asking about
well,
you, Mary.
I'm just going to say I'm going to try and meet Kyle's, enthusiasm. And I know I won't do as good a job. Go, Rangers, go! Go, Rangers, go!
Mary, that was excellent. You did better than Kyle. Thank you for calling today.
I mean it. I mean it. I
know
it
you
from
do.
the bottom of my heart. Okay?
Listen, Mary. Okay, wait. Please wait.
Wait. What?
Okay. How are you doing?
I've been better.
Okay. Folks have been asking, Mary. You are relied upon on this show. We worry when we don't hear from you.
Have they
honestly
really been asking? Oh, dear.
I promise you they've been asking.
Well, I'm still listening. And anyway, hey, yeah, things will be okay. Eventually. And go, Rangers, go!
Thank you, Mary. Great to hear from you today. I know that others feel the same. So nice to hear your voice. And Kyle, you've got some competition in the enthusiasm department. Because I got the email from Greg to Mike at 570news.com. Nice reminder. Appreciate you, Greg. The theme for this Friday's All Request show is actors who sing. Now, I know we've got to kind of go both ways. Sometimes singers act and whatnot, but what I'm looking for in this case is somebody who we primarily know as an actor who also has either tried a singing career, maybe had a single song turn into a hit, whatever the case may be. Listen, it's your request. I don't get too fussy with it, but the better we can do when it comes to somebody best known for their acting who also then sang or tried to sing. That's what we're looking for with our All Request Friday this week. So the actor who also sings. For example, Bette Midler's name has already come up as one of the requests. I like that one because we know Bette mostly as the actor. So let's also think of those actors who have sung us a song or two along the way. That is your theme for All Request Friday, and you can make your request by sending me an email to Mike at 570news.com. I'm going to be right back here with you in just a few hours. This is your home of Kitchener Rangers hockey. And Josh Piercy and I have your Harris Law pregame show for Game 4, Rangers Spitfires, tonight at 6:30. And it's a big game, so I hope you'll join us for it. Until then, my name is Mike Farwell. You are a force for good. Bye for now.